Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And cannot thank you enough for listening and watching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora all around the world, as we are here with you on so many different channels. And we appreciate your connection to us on YouTube.com and Facebook.com. Both /WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Once the shows go live, you can hop into the archives and check out our additions to these archives, as well as over 1,600 episodes on Podbean. You can also find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podvine, Podchaser.com, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is go to any one of these outlets and search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And I thank everybody that has. Make sure when you're there you click subscribe and follow. It is free to do so, and we appreciate everyone who has done that. So thank you so much. And with that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, I want to thank you for being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on our Friday broadcast as we wrap up this week. We've had a fantastic week of conversations, and I feel very honored and privileged to have the conversations we've gotten to have, to do the events we've gotten to do this week. We started off this week at the Wildcat Sports Pub, as I had the opportunity to MC my first ever banquet for boys basketball at West Jenny. Now, I've interviewed boys basketball at West Jenny, but I've never been asked to do the banquet as the MC. And Fred Kent, the head coach of the varsity team, asked me to do that, which is one of the greatest honors of my life up to this point, and will continue to be. And I got to spend some time with Eric Szynski, the JV head coach at West Jenny, as well as Fred Kent, the varsity head coach, celebrate their awesome season, celebrate the student athletes, celebrate the community, thank the community, and, of course, be with the West Genesee Wildcats and be at the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Two things I greatly appreciate in a community that I deeply love. So thank you for that honor. That's how we started the week off. And we got to go back to the Wildcat yesterday for GG Cards and Breaks Trade Night, our third one that we've had there. They have trade night every single month, and you can find it at the store on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. And then what we do each season, once in spring, once in summer, once in fall, and once in winter, is that we have GG Cards and Breaks Trade Night on the road, and we go to the Wildcat Sports Pub. And last night was that night, and we had the opportunity to do that, and it really meant a lot to me. I had the opportunity to honor our fallen heroes, and I don't even want to call them fallen heroes, because they've risen with God now. So we got to honor our heroes who are now in heaven: Syracuse Police Officer Michael Jensen and Onondaga County Sheriff's Deputy Lieutenant Michael Husak. And I got to say a few words last night. That's really all I wanted to do, was to make sure that we honored them, that we remembered that while we're sitting there having fun and eating and drinking and trading cards and selling cards and buying cards, that we actually take the time to realize how beautiful life is, how fragile life is, and that simply doing something like going out and having a sports card night doesn't come without freedom, doesn't come without protection, doesn't come without people serving the community, right? And there being some type of law and order. And so I am grateful to Michael Jensen and Michael Husak, and I'm thankful that they took an oath years ago and did something where, I mean, you're running in. You're not running away from, you're running at, right? And that's not an easy job, and it's not an easy task, and it doesn't come without paying the ultimate price sometimes. Now, this is something we're not used to having in our community, thank God, but it is something that happens in the world. And I hope that with this tragedy, we realize as a community that one death is too many. one life being lost is too many. One person not coming home to their family is too many. And police officers and firefighters and EMTs and everyone in the first responder world and, everybody out there protecting and helping and serving, they do everything in their power when they take that oath. Their job is to make sure that you live, that you're safe, that you're healthy, that you're happy, that you're okay. And that's a lot. That's a lot to put on a person. But they do that every day. They take that every day with them and they try to help other people. We can never thank them enough. We can never do enough to appreciate somebody who puts their life on the line for a complete stranger. But what we can do is we can support them, appreciate them, respect them, and thank them. And last night I had the opportunity to share some words about that, and I thank the community for their support. When I walked in last night to set up, there was a table of law enforcement right before you go into the party room where we do the trade night. And I went over to the owner, Danny Tome, and I said, Danny, is that a table of law enforcement? And he said, yeah. He said, yeah, I think so. And I just, I appreciate law enforcement. And last night when I walked by them, you think a few things. You think, are they okay? Do they feel safe? Are they nervous to be out right now? Do they know we appreciate them? And hopefully they did feel safe. Hopefully they are doing as best as they could do. Hopefully they will be okay. And hopefully they know they're appreciated. But last night, I took some time to say some things that I think needed to be said. And you can watch those on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You can watch them on Facebook at wakeupcalldt. You can watch them on X at calldt. And you can watch them on Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. Things need to change. Bail reform and criminals having more rights than their victims need to change. Letting people go back on the street after committing a crime needs to change. The safety and security and the health and well-being of our community is not being held by our politicians, and that needs to change. And I'm not saying every politician, but somebody made some really bad decisions for New York State. And we talk about them privately, but we need to talk about them publicly. Because cops and investigators and lawyers are having a tough time doing their job. They're having a tough time protecting the community because of reform and change to law that cripples the ability for a law enforcement officer to actually enact the law and carry out the law. My dad was a lawyer for 44 years. And he told me in the last 2.5 years, he wasn't able to do his job in New York State. He wasn't able to make arrests And my dad has dealt with people, if you'll oblige me for a second, my dad has dealt with people that have sexually abused 90-year-olds in nursing homes. My dad dealt with people that stole millions of dollars from New York State. In a single year, my dad might return billions of dollars to New York State, to us. And the laws that have changed over the years have prevented my dad from returning stolen money and arresting disgusting people. And that needs to change. When people do bad things and they get a slap on the wrist and told to get out of here, 9 times out of 10, I don't think that person's going to change. There has to be a consequence to doing bad things. And a fair and just consequence, but there has to be a consequence. And these police officers and law enforcement people and investigators and lawyers, it's becoming very hard in New York State to do the right thing. And that sounds insane, and it's because it is. And I can't pretend to know everything about it. I don't know the ins and outs. And I have to educate myself. But what I do know is when my father has served this state for over 4 decades and he says, I can't do my job anymore, they won't let me, that speaks to my heart. Because my dad has stood up against a lot of not great things. And I'd like to think because of people like my dad, we're safer walking the streets of Syracuse and central and upstate New York and New York State in general. So I wanted to say something last night. I appreciate the community's response. And to all the law enforcement people out there, first responders, firefighters, everybody, EMTs, people working in the hospital, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, everybody. I love you. I appreciate you. Please continue to protect and serve. Please continue to do everything you can to help others' lives. And please know that I will, and hopefully we will, do everything we can to preserve and help and protect your life and serve you back. God bless you. And God bless this world. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com is what's popping. We're going to start the show off with the annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. We'll jump into lead, learn, evolve, ad-lib, and deliver is what the acronym stands for, and that's proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. We're going to talk about the topic today of navigating your mind. Top dog of the week will be announced, proudly presented by K9 Kamp Dog Daycare and K9 Kampground Dog Boarding, and we'll round out the show with the NFL draft thoughts on what all 32 NFL franchises need heading into the draft, which is less than a week away. That's all coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in a TGIF broadcast, starting with the annoying moment of the week.
Dan Tortora proudly brings you...
Is that for real? Are you kidding me?
The annoying moment of the week.
I really, honestly, I don't know how to respond to this.
Presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street. It's what happy tastes like.
Do you have to be that crazy? I guess so. The annoying moment of the week for this week. I got a few. And my first annoying moment, well, it's not, well, they're funny stories. Some things are annoying. We'll get into the annoying of it. But, okay, Punxsutawney Phil and his wife Phyllis, I didn't know he had, now, okay, here's the annoying moment of this story, okay? Punxsutawney Phil, a groundhog, has a wife, and I can't even find somebody that's halfway sane in New York State. Sad. I shouldn't say I can't find someone that's halfway sane. I haven't found the right person. Mike said, thanks for the support. Hooch was a personal friend of mine. Prayers. God bless you. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're doing the best you can, Mike. If you need to talk, if you need anything, reach out and I'll do what I can, to be there for you. So, God bless you, Mike. I'm sorry for the passing of your friend Hooch, Michael Husak, and I'm here for you. God bless you. And I'm sorry that this happened to somebody that you love and you care about. It should never happen. The annoying moment of the week. This is what's annoying about this. Puxatawny Phil and has a wife named Phyllis. I can't find the right person. Anytime, man. Thank you, too. I can't find the right girl for me. And I'm 38. I cannot find, and I'm not going to get into the crazy things that I've heard, but, we talked about it last night at the Wildcat. but there's some crazy things out there. Puxatawny Phil has a wife, and I don't. That's annoying to me. I'm happy for Puxatawny Phil, but maybe groundhog mating is easier. It's hard to find a good one, above ground here. So, because groundhogs are above ground, but they're like burrowing and all over the place. You know what I mean. Anywho, Puxatawny Phil, he predicted, he predicts whether there's going to be an early spring or not and all that good stuff. So, the Pennsylvania group that handles Phil and his groundhog wife, Phyllis, I don't know why they had to specify that it was a groundhog. Like, could it have been something else? A raccoon wife? He's married a turtle? I don't know. Anywho, they said the couple have become parents. The Puxatawny Groundhog Club said in a Facebook post Wednesday of this week, or whenever, that Phyllis recently gave birth to 2 healthy babies. It did not specify their sex or give names to either one. Well, I'll leave that alone. Well, so here's my thing. Puxatawny Phil, this is just my question for you. Puxatawny Phil and his wife Phyllis had babies. 2. Did Puxatawny Phil see it coming? He should have. If he's really a predictor. Anywho, so there's a Swedish appeal court that ruled that a space rock has to stay with the owner of the property where it landed. A Swedish landowner won a legal battle to keep a 14-kilogram, which is 31 pounds, meteorable property in part of the land where they're found. The property on which the meteorite landed contains iron, and the meteorite is made of iron. Therefore, it, quote, cannot be easily separated from what is usually regarded as immovable property, end quote. On November 7th, 2020, an iron meteorite fell on a private property in Uppland, north of Stockholm. In December of that year, 2 geologists found it and eventually handed it over to the Swedish Museum of Natural History in the Swedish capital. And then the Swedish news agency TT, it's literally their agency, TT, it's nice and short, I like it, said the owner of the private land where it was found, Johan Benzelsterna von Engelstrom, appealed a December 2022 ruling by the Uppsala District Court. That ruling gave the rocks finders Andreas Forsberg and Anders Zetterqvist the right to the stone because the meteorite was not part of the property and it was movable property without an owner. On Thursday, the appeals court said the iron meteorite is, quote, made up of substances that are already present in the Earth's surface, end quote. Judge Robert Green said the meteorite or space rock should be considered, quote, part of a movable property, just like other stones, even though it may intuitively feel like it is something foreign to the Earth, end quote. It may feel like it's foreign to the Earth. It's a meteorite. I'm cool with the guy getting to keep it, as long as it doesn't break open and some alien comes out of it. But if it's Venom, then I'll be okay. If it's Venom, I know that symbiotes, for those of you that know Marvel, if it's Venom, not safe, but Venom is one of my favorite characters, and, I'm willing to study it. But they said that it should be on the property, the judge says, in the quote, that it feels. I want you to hear this again. It's part of a movable property just like other stones, even though it may intuitively feel like it's something foreign. It doesn't intuitively feel like. You don't need intuition. It fell from the sky. There's no intuition in that. There's no, it fell from the sky. It may feel like it's not from Earth. Well, it's not from Earth. We're just weird now, right? As a human race, we're just weird now. We say weird things. We're afraid. I realized that in a conversation last night, that somebody was afraid to say anything politically incorrect. So, they kept correcting themselves. They're like, oh, if any man or woman, I'm sorry. And it's like, and just tell the story. Think about that. If a comedian had to keep correcting themselves and correcting themselves and correcting themselves, you lose the joke, right? If you say, oh, if this is this and this is that, or if it thinks it's this, or if it thinks that it's that, or if it identifies and thinks that it's over, just tell the joke. Just tell the joke. We're making life too complicated. If a meteorite feels like it's not from here, it doesn't have to feel like it's not. We don't need intuition to tell us it's not. The fact that it fell from the sky should be all the evidence we need to know it's not from here. What do you think? Some human being picked it up and threw it, and it went out it left Earth's atmosphere. It rotated, it went around the Earth, a few times, had some fun orbiting, and then dropped back to its rightful owner like a frisbee, like a boomerang. If it intuitively feels like it's not... I speak in factual tongue. Hey, you can keep this meteorite, even though it's not from here. It's iron. It fell on iron. I don't want to move it because iron on iron they lock together like magnets. And I feel like if we move it, maybe we're going to mess up the Earth. So let's just let it sit there. But I want to know what this guy's going to do with the meteorite. Are his kids going to draw faces on it and have fun with it? Does it shine and shimmer? Does it do different things? Does he have a camera on it at all times to see if it breaks open or if it changes shape or if it glimmers or glistens a certain way? I would think it's really cool to have the meteorite, and then I would also watch it like a hawk. I'd get a lawn chair and I'd sit in front of it and I'd just look at it, waiting for something to happen. So it's cool, little bit terrifying. A judge saying, hey, you may not think it may feel like it's not from Earth. Well, sir, there are human beings on this planet that feel like they're not from Earth, but I can tell you that this meteorite is not from here. So, my third annoying moment of the week is, I'm all about the Loch Ness Monster. And I actually had a conversation about the Loch Ness Monster this week, and I had made the statement that the Loch Ness Monster very much could be alive. I love dinosaurs, and I did a lot of show and tell stuff about dinosaurs growing up. And there is, if this dinosaur could dive deep enough and then either stayed in a cave or stayed somewhere or got trapped in one, but could breathe underwater, there is the reality that this dinosaur could have outlived the meteor attack, which may have felt like it wasn't from Earth. Did you see what I did there? So the Loch Ness Monster could be a real thing, right? Now, the Loch Ness Center, I didn't know any of this. There's a Loch Ness Center. There's a bunch of stuff. So they urged the space agency of NASA to lead and lend its expertise in a hunt for the creature. And who didn't think about this before? You got all these telescopes that can see into space. You got this Hubble telescope that can, magnify into the deep deep recesses of space. So, I mean, why don't we have something that can look underwater? One of the biggest searches of the Loch Ness Monster in the Highlands concluded with a hydrophone capturing loud underwater noises and several potential sightings. The latest search will take place on the 90th anniversary of Sir Edward Mountain's expedition from May 30th to June 2nd. Since that first expedition in 1934, the Watchers of the Monster, which is apparently a group I didn't know about, there have been over 1,156 sightings recorded on the official Loch Ness Monster register. That is so eerie when you look at the water and just like little tiny boats in it. It's terrifying. I want to see if you guys can see this from the article I'm reading. It's just so eerie. And they took it in black and white. I mean, they want it to be eerie. So it says Amy Todd from the Loch Ness Center said, quote, "We are hoping that Nessie hunters around the world will help us reach the people at NASA. We're hoping to reach them through the power of social media." There's no NASA email? There's no NASA media person? "We are just hoping for their expert guidance to help with our ongoing quest to get answers. We have gone to UK universities. We are hoping that experts from NASA might have some advanced imaging technology to scan the loch. We would have to sit down and talk to them about how to get it here," end quote. Well, you could send it on a meteorite and hope that it lands in the right place, and then you could have ownership of it. Just trying to link it all together from the stories this morning. But, you know, some people believe in the Loch Ness Monster. Some people don't. But there is the reality that if it can breathe underwater and it could swim and it had, you know, a long life expectancy and was able to evolve or just, you know, be able to live underwater and have a certain amount of food out there, then, you know, maybe there is a Loch Ness Monster. Maybe there is. But I'm a little concerned about the fact that, I'm going to look it up right now. Does NASA have an email? NASA's got to have an email. How does NASA, you know what I mean? How's there not like a media relations person? They're like, oh, we're trying to reach out to NASA. They're hard to get a hold of. I mean, NASA is pretty, you know, they're pretty well known, I'd think, right? They've been around for a minute. So let's see here. NASA staff directory. Boom, here you go, staff list. I'm going to help out the UK right now. They got emails right here, man. They have emails with all these people right here. Science Application International Corporation. They got people at NASA and different universities. It's all here. The Loch Ness Center, do you need me to send this to you via email? Because I will. But let's get the expedition going. Listen, in 2024, with all the stuff that we know how to do and all the things that we work on and all of the, you know, stuff that we waste money on, I feel like we should be able to find the Loch Ness Monster with technology at this point. I feel like arguably there could be like some 16-year-old kid that built something that can help us find the Loch Ness Monster at this point. So let's do it. Let's just figure it out. Why not? My other annoying moment of the week, and I might have said this before, it's my last scoop here. 4 scoops of the annoying moment of the week. You guys are going to be full. And I think I've talked about this, but that when you go to a restaurant now, they keep your change. Like, if your bill's $43.24, right? $43.24, which means you get 76 cents back because that makes $1. So it's $43.24, and you give them a $50 bill, you get back $6.76 because $43.24 plus $6.76 makes $50, and they come back to you with $6, and the 76 cents has disappeared. You ask yourself, where'd the money go? And then you ask them, where's my money? This happened to my dad and I this week. And he asked the server, he goes, where's my change? He asked her where the change was. And she's like, oh, you want your change? And he was like, yeah, I do. What I do is if you keep my change, I just give you $1 less than what the tip was going to be. So if my tip was going to be $8 and you decided to keep my 24 cents, 76 cents, 52 cents, that's your other dollar because you decided to keep money I didn't give you. So now you get less. Now you got 48 cents less. You got 52 cents that you decided to keep. I was going to give you $1. My tip was going to be $5. Now it's $4 because you decided the 52 cents was yours. So congrats. It's my way of saying you did something I didn't give you permission to do. So now my response to that is to say, okay, since you've taken the liberty to take my money without asking me, my liberty back to you is to say I'm going to give you less because I wanted to give you 20%. But you already started taking some of that percent, so add it into what I give you now. It's not a nice thing to do. And servers, stop doing this. I have been a server, and I've also overseen, and ran a dining room with a ton of servers in it at an extremely busy restaurant at Walt Disney World. You do not get to take a penny that is not given to you. So stop doing it. It's as simple as that. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll be back with Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver right after this. This has been the Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. If you're having an annoying moment or a good moment, a positive moment, a moment of strife or frustration, whatever your day is giving you, Carvel DeWitt is always the place to bring a positive into your day. Their flavor is incredible. You know that they have awesome favorites that are seasonal, and Carvel DeWitt is the only home of the DT Dolphin, my Sunday that reflects the Lemoyne College Dolphins. And you can go and get your DT Dolphin today on 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. We'll be back on Wake Up Call right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, located for you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. You will find hockey, baseball, basketball, football, as well as AEW, UFC, all sport, soccer, cards on site, on location at GG Cards and Breaks while supplies last. You could find them in singles, graded cards, packs, and boxes. And you want to go in there because you never know the inventory that's going to be coming up and what surprises they're going to have for the community. So you make sure that you get yourself in there for those singles, gradeds, as well as boxes and packs. They're the only place that I know that has Major League Baseball, National Football League, and National Basketball Association on lock. Every team there for you on the back wall. They have all the franchises of the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB for you to go and find your favorite team and hopefully your favorite player and take home some awesome cards. And it's not boxes of simply just base cards. These are cards that are numbered, cards that have relics in them, cards that are signed, cards that are rookies. You never know what you're going to find in those boxes, so make sure that you go and check out your favorite team and look for your favorite player today, and you could get some really awesome steals there at GG Cards and Breaks, some fantastic finds. So we appreciate them so very much. They bring you trade night every single month. They do it at their store, and they also do it during the year at the Wildcat like we did last night. I would like to thank everyone that was there for it. I am proud to be in partnership with the Wildcat Sports Pub and GG Cards and Breaks. We had a wonderful time with the community. We honored our wonderful heroes in the community, and we bought, sold, and traded. I had a great night of trading, probably the best trades that I've done in a long time. So I had an awesome, awesome time. Love being around all different ages of people that just absolutely love the sports card and trading card world. Some people are just jumping in. Welcome. Some people have been here forever, and we appreciate you too. Very much so. So with that being said, GG Cards or Breaks is open 7 days a week, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, right off at Teal Ave. You will find them Monday through Saturday from 10 to 6, and Sunday they are open 10 to 5, and we look forward to seeing you at GG Cards and Breaks today. With that being said, here on the broadcast on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life, it is time to jump into Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver, is what the acronym stands for. God help me with this awesome idea. I wanted to do something faith-based. I wanted to do something that really, is about who I am and what I care about, and something that we could use in so many different ways. And he helped me to have this idea. And I greatly, greatly appreciate this idea of Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver. And I cannot thank God enough for all of the wonderful conversations we've gotten to have here. It truly means a lot to me. So, with that being said, in this edition of Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver, our topic today, navigating your mind. Proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. Your mind can be a great thing. Your mind can also be a battlefield. How we treat our mind is very important to our overall health and well-being. What you feed your mind will be hungry for. If you feed it negativity, it will consistently start to be negative and want that energy. If you feed it positivity, it will consistently feed into that energy and want more positivity. Our mind is not an easy thing. It is filled with booby traps at times, and there are minefields, if you will, a little play on words, that you have to clear. It is not simply good enough to tiptoe past the minds of your mind, but you have to get rid of those minds, because they could blow up at any time. And if you have a weak moment or a tough moment, or somebody knows how to push a button, that button could ignite that mine field or mine individually in your mind. So when we're navigating our mind, how do we do it? Well, I don't think you can do anything without God. I think you could try to. I think that people will call things coincidences and, just happenstance and random and whatever, and I'm awesome, I created all. There's a lot of things that people may say when something good happens. And it's difficult. It's difficult to navigate. It's difficult to navigate your mind. It really is. And it's difficult to be consistent. We live in a world where even if we're at our best, and even if we get control of our mind, and even if we control it and it doesn't control us, we live in a world where we are constantly, if we put ourselves out there, even just a little bit, we are constantly potentially open for attacks from complete strangers. Total strangers. People that will never meet you, that will never have dinner with you, that will never lay in bed next to you, that will never go on a walk with you, that will never, be invited over to your house. But people that make themselves very comfortable in your mind if you let them. We live in a world where I think social media should have brought us together. It should have helped us to spread more positive information and do good things and find ways to connect and share and enjoy each other's company, a way of being less degrees of separation from celebrities and people that we appreciate. I didn't think it was going to be a place where hate was just going to run rampant. And yet it is. And people feel very comfortable attacking people. Everyone I'm talking to around the world right now, I'm sure you have at least one story where someone that or you, or both, were attacked on social media with negative comments and people that want you to fail, want you to quit, want you to think you're ugly or stupid or not good at something. They hate your voice. They hate your face. They hate what you dress like. They don't think you have enough of this. They think you have too much of that. We've all been there. I've been there. And some people are so sick that they'll say things about you on social media knowing they're going to see you at an event. They're going to see you at school. They're going to sit next to you. There was one person talk so much trash about me, and they sat next to me at events. And I didn't handle that seating chart. But that's just how it happened. And to me, that was God. That was God going, okay, you have to look at this man that you just disgustingly spoke about. Your disturbing behavior is not going to be in a place where you're protected. You have to sit next to this person that you disrespected. And you have to let that marinate. Because I don't think people get away with anything. We think they do, but I think eventually everything comes to pass. Everything eventually comes to you. It comes to you and whatever. But I don't think you get away with things. I think eventually they come to you. And that's not me wishing bad on people, because if you do good in the world, what did I just say? The things that you do come to you. So if you're a good person, I'm telling you the good things are going to come to you. I don't wish bad on anybody. I say you get what you give. So if you're giving good things, that's a compliment. That's not a compliment, but that's something to look forward to. If you do bad things and you're like, hey, Dan, why are you wishing bad on me? I'm not wishing bad on you. I said, if whatever you do will be done to you. And your guilty conscience said, well, I do bad things. I don't like that thought. Well, then stop doing it to other people. There's this common ground of Most people don't want people to be mean to them and do bad things to them. But there's a group of people in the world that just made a decision, regardless of color, background, national origin, money, this, that, whatever. There's just people in this world that are totally fine being jerks. I shouldn't even say a group, because they all kind of work individually, but they're just jerks. And in the world we live in today, our mind was already a difficult thing to navigate when we were created by God. Thank you, Alan. Alan said he likes my shirts. I appreciate you, man. But our mind was already a difficult thing when God created us. It became more difficult as our society evolved and technology advanced to the point where we can now tell you, I hate your shirt. I hate your face. I hate your voice. I think you're fat. I think you're ugly. I think you're stupid. I hate your ideas. I think you're going to fail. You're never going to make it. Those were thoughts that sometimes we had in our own mind. And now we might have those thoughts, and then those thoughts are echoed by total strangers, echoed by peers, echoed by people that we have to see in the streets, and echoed by people that we'll never see. And how do you handle that? How do you handle having negative thoughts and then having people take those negative thoughts and build them up? Put a rocket underneath them. Well, folks, I know we need God. We need God. You know, and without God, I don't know how we get anything done. I really don't. And I know that there's people that listen to the show and watch the show that may believe in God, don't believe in God. They have this religion, they have that religion. And that's fine. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm never going to tell you what to believe in and what to do. I'm just going to tell you what I believe in. And I'm going to tell you that I appreciate you. And I respect your freedom. And I also can disagree and say, you know what? I believe in God. I always have. I always will. I'm not going to change. And that's just how it is. Now, believing in God in today's world is not easy. As my dad said, he said, it's not cool. It's not cool to believe in God. And if I've realized anything in my life, it's the things that aren't quote unquote cool with society that end up being the usually the better road to take. It wasn't cool when I left traditional radio. It wasn't cool to start an internet show. It wasn't cool to podcast. People didn't know what it was. People didn't understand it. People thought that the internet was going to, that radio and TV, like, it was going to fail. There was not going to be internet radio. It wasn't cool for me to dress the way that I dressed. It wasn't cool for me to hang out with the kids that people didn't talk to. It wasn't cool for me to hang out with the kids that were new kids at high school. It wasn't cool for me to date this girl. It wasn't cool for me to start this show. But if I didn't do any of the things that weren't quote unquote cool, if I listened to people and said, all right, you don't think it's cool, I'm not going to do it, I wouldn't be sitting here today owning my own business, doing my own show, talking about God, creating my own segments, trusting in myself, betting on myself, betting on God, trusting in God, having faith, I would not be where I am today with the people that I'm with today if I listened to anybody tell me you can't. But when you're navigating your mind, you can't let other people in. Your mind is already going to challenge you. I don't know why, but it is. Your mind is going to challenge you. Your mind is going to think a negative thought, and you have to get that thought out. You have to retrain your mind. People call it rewiring, right? You're negative, so, okay, we're going to take this wire, move it over here, and we're going to create more of a positive response and send it out. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But we have to work on navigating our minds, because we can get lost in minefields in our mind, and they can blow up at any time. And I think the society we live in today is not conducive to positive mindset. It's conducive to crazy, it's conducive to chaos, it's conducive to negativity, and it's conducive to what sells. And why negativity sells is beyond me, because nobody should buy negativity. No one should buy negativity. Constructive criticism? Fine. Negativity? No. Destructive criticism? Personal attacks? No. You know, what did I just see? A headline on X, the former Twitter? Caitlin Clark blocks Antonio Brown after he made a ridiculous... He made a comment that, hey, I've said it before. Antonio Brown, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, not knowing him, he does a lot of things that screams to me, I'm a third grader and I'm standing in the back of the classroom and nobody's looking at me. So I'm going to keep doing things and saying things until somebody looks at me. I don't care if it's positive or negative. I just want to cause enough of a commotion so that people pay attention to me, because nobody's paying attention to me. And if people don't pay attention to me, then I don't matter. I feel like Antonio Brown is a cry for help. And again, how does Antonio Brown even know Caitlin Clark? Does he know Caitlin Clark? But to attack Caitlin Clark publicly, he knows, but he wants to be talked about. That's how I see it. Antonio Brown has done things over the years that make me, I pray for him. I'm concerned for him. I'm concerned about his mind and navigating his mind and what his mind might look like. But it also should show you that nobody's immune to attack, and that celebrities attack celebrities. And I don't know if I would call Antonio Brown a celebrity, but he was. And now I feel like he's just somebody that wants to pick on people, and he wants to cause chaos and commotion. And I'm not here to personally attack him. I'm stating what I see. I don't wish bad on him. I pray for him. I absolutely don't agree with the way that he seems to do things, but again, we live in a world where Caitlin Clark is the number one overall pick. She should be experiencing nothing but bliss right now. And somebody, known or unknown, goes out and attacks her because they can. And she has to navigate her mind. And she has to figure out how to not let something like that bother her. Everyone in this world will have a time where they struggle with their mind. But how you navigate that struggle, which to me needs to have God, it's not an easy thing. It's not a 1-second fix. Delrina said, I believe guidance to goodness is needed. Yeah. It comes with God. It comes with prayer. It comes with church or some type of worship, temple, synagogue, mosque. It comes with time. It comes with surrounding yourself with good people. It comes with yoga, prayer, breathing, meditation, prayer. I'm telling you, folks, it is absolutely your choice to do what you want to do in your life. I'm just saying to you with love in my heart, prayer changes things. It does. I've seen it. I've lived it. And it's very hard to navigate your mind in a world where you're trying to do it all by yourself. And I'm not saying you can't make achievements by yourself. You can. And I applaud those achievements. What I'm saying is, this is a very difficult world. And it becomes more difficult without God. It becomes more difficult without faith. It becomes more difficult when you try to make a God in place of the God that actually exists. When you try to worship something that is not God, because it will always let you down. If you worship people, they'll let you down. If you worship a TV show, it'll eventually end. If you worship a celebrity, they'll eventually make a mistake. Worshipping anything other than God will lead you down a path that at some point will feel like you've lost control. So I implore you to pray, even if you never have, even if you feel like you don't know how to do it, to seek help, to seek goodness, and to come to a place where you're not on social media sharing things for the clicks and the likes and the attention, but you're sharing them because it's who you are and you're proud of it. I don't care how many people like my page. I don't care how many people like my picture. I love what I do, and I've promoted myself to one person, to 3 million people, to 10 people, to 200 people, to 200 likes, to over 1,000 likes, to 1 like, to no likes. Because it's not about that to me. To me, it's about doing what I love, loving what I do, and believing in it. And having faith that God will take me to the places that I don't know how to get to the things that I don't know yet, that He will take me to the right place, guide me to the good, and guard me from the bad. Your mind is a tough thing. But having faith, believing in God, praying, surrounding yourself with good people, positivity, constructive criticism, and knowing when to take a step back and say, okay, you know what? I don't need to look at that. I don't need to read that. I don't need to see that. Just because somebody writes hate to you doesn't mean you need to read it. If somebody came to your house with a gift-wrapped box full of poop because they gift-wrapped it and gave it to you, you think you have to keep it? I'll take that box and put it right back in their car. Hey, you came with it, you leave with it. Nobody wants this. Just because somebody wants to make you feel bad doesn't mean you get to let them. Just because you have to let them. You don't have to. Just because somebody wants to make you feel bad doesn't mean you have to let them. Just because somebody wants to hurt you doesn't mean you have to let them. Just because somebody writes something to you that's negative doesn't mean you have to let it bother you. Just because somebody says something, does something, doesn't mean that you have to let them. The way we navigate our mind positively is by realizing that we do not let people have loft apartments in the house of our mind. That mind is for you and God. You and God. It's not for people. It's not a college campus. It's not for people to build a dormitory. It's for you and God. You can remember positive things people said. You can remember things that inspire you. I'm not saying to not have memories and not have things that move you. I'm saying nobody gets to create a loft apartment in your home unless you put it up for sale and you sell it. Remember that. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. This has been Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver is the acronym, with a new topic every week. This topic this week, Navigating Your Mind, proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. We'll be back with the top dog of the week and NFL draft talk right after this.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Rd in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand butter chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. It is time for our top dog of the week. Top Dog of the Week, proudly presented by K9 Camp Dog Daycare and K9 Kampground Dog Boarding. Our top dog of the week this week, two top dogs of the week, and you guessed it, based on our conversation, based on things that obviously matter very, very much to me in a community that I love. My top dogs of the week, our law enforcement, those who are out there protecting and serving with no discrimination, with love, with sacrifice, with goodness, empathy, kindness, and care. And my top dogs of the week, of course, Michael Jensen and Lieutenant Michael Husak. I ask for a moment of silence for them both and for all who have passed away in the line of duty. I thank you for that. I thank you for that moment. To the families of Michael Jensen and Lieutenant Michael Husak, my prayers are with you. I have said this to a priest in the community. I have said this to business ownership. If there is anything that I can do, any event that you're doing, any prayer service, any vigil, anywhere I can be, and for those of you watching and listening right now, if there's anything you're doing or anything you know about, write into the show. Send me a message. You could send a private message if you want on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, on X at Call DT, on Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. You can email me dtstays@gmail.com. I will do whatever I can to help. And I want to know what we can do. I have ideas on things that I would like to do. There's things that I have done, and there's things that I would want to do. There can be no event too big to celebrate these lives and their families. So my top dogs, Syracuse police officer Michael Jensen, and Onondaga County Sheriff's Deputy Lieutenant Michael Husak. Also, their loved ones. Also, the people whose lives they've touched and saved. Also, those that work with them, their peers. Also, their bosses, those who hired them, those who mentored them, their teachers. And to everyone in law enforcement, first responder duty, firefighters, hospital, EMT, everybody. You are my top dogs of the week. You're my top dogs every week. Because I appreciate you. I thank you. I'm grateful for you. We need you. We don't say it enough. And you have had a lot of undue, unwarranted, unjust disrespect over the years. And that needs to stop. There are great people that protect us. I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but in every single profession, you can find a knucklehead. And if you thought that finding a knucklehead or two meant that everyone in that profession's a knucklehead, well, that would be a pretty dark world. Not every lawyer is a liar. Not every cop is this, that, and the other. Not every broadcaster is this, that, and the other. Not every media person is that. Anytime you group everyone and you hold everyone accountable for the actions or thoughts of one or words of one or two or three or five or 10 people, what does that do? What has that done to race? What has it done to sex? What has it done to religion? What has it done to money? What has it done to nation of origin? What has it done to language? It never works when you group people. It never works. So, when people would say back the blue and they're like, oh, well, then you hate these people and you hate that group and you hate this. No. I support those that protect me and make sure. See, I go about my day, right? I wake up in the morning. I expect no one to have broken into my house. I expect my house to be safe. I go to sleep feeling like I'm safe. I wake up feeling like I'm safe. I go out to the grocery store feeling like I'm safe. I drive in the car feeling like I'm safe. Why is that? Because I have a giant faith in God that knows no bounds, and because I believe that there's good people out there protecting me. Some of us live our whole lives in towns and cities and whatnot where these invisible guards and guides make it so, you never even, how many times you say, like, well, this doesn't, what do people say to me when this happened? Oh, this doesn't happen here, Dan. This doesn't happen in Syracuse. Because thankfully, we don't see this that much. But in New York City, in Los Angeles, in Orlando, you could be turning around and going, well, yeah, well, I know about this and I know about that and I saw this and I saw. It's not enough to say, law enforcement are my top dogs of the week. They're those that protect and serve and take that seriously and do it with the goodness of their heart and without any discrimination and a whole lot of love. I love and respect and appreciate you. It's not enough to just say it. We have to do things. We have to make an effort to care. And I hope that you'll join me in doing that. Shout out to my top dogs of the week. Michael Jensen, Lieutenant Michael Husak, and everybody who wears a badge and goes out there knowing that this could be the last day of their life and strapping up anyways, putting those pants on, putting that shirt on, getting those shoes and going outside, kissing their wife, kissing their husband, kissing their kids, calling their loved ones, laughing with their friends, fully knowing this could be the last day. How many of us wake up in the morning thinking, this could be the last day of my life? And the irony is, every day you wake up could be the last day of your life, but how many of us actually think that? Somebody in law enforcement, somebody with law and order in their job description, that is every day. My dad, as a lawyer, had people threaten to kill him in court when I was a baby. Think about that. My dad was out there trying to protect the innocent and to help victims, and you got a defendant threatening to kill your wife and your kid. And you think that my dad's the only person that had to hear that? And that was here in Syracuse, New York, in our home. We must honor in action and in word, not just to wear blue, not just to say something nice on social media, but we have to actually live in such a way where we appreciate those that do things with law and order and goodness and faith and God and guidance. We need to trust them. They need to trust us. We need to love them. They need to love us. And we need to rebuild what's been broken. You're my top dogs of the week because I respect you and I love you and I thank you for keeping my family safe and for keeping me safe. So it's for Michael Husak, it's for Michael Jensen, but it's also for everyone who's died in the line of duty and everyone who gets up today, including my friends and family, and puts on that uniform. God bless you. You're my top dogs, and you know who you are. My prayers to you, my well wishes to you, and my love to you. May you get home to your family. Thank you for helping me to get home to mine. May you get home to yours. God bless. No stress. Do your best. That's what we always say here on the show. It's time to get into the NFL draft. I just want to let everybody know we have a live draft party. We're going to have some fun with this thing, as we always do. Our live draft event is going to be for the first round. Our first round mock draft will happen Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. at Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. We will be on site, on location. When I say we, who do I mean? Al Romano, Pitt Panthers national champion, who is on the same team as Tony Dorsett, who you all know from the Dallas Cowboys. Al Romano came from Solvay, New York, Central New York, upstate New York, born and bred, went off to Pitt, won a national championship, went on to the NFL, and he's my co-host every year on stage at Pizza Man. He does his mock draft of the first round 1 through 32. I do my mock draft of the first round 1 through 32. He doesn't see my sheet. I don't see his sheet. We sit there. We turn on the camera. We turn on the microphone. And to everybody at Pizza Man and everybody watching and listening in the community and around the world, you get to see our live first round mock draft on the night of the first round. We start at 6. The draft starts at 8. We're at Pizza Man. You're having dinner and drinks. Of course, as always, drink responsibly and only drink if you are of age. You have some drinks. You have some food. You watch us. You disagree with us. You agree with us. And then after we're done, we sit and watch the draft with you, and we see how we did, and we have fun with it. And this is going to be awesome. Our live first-round mock draft this Thursday, April 25th, starting at 6 p.m. on draft night at Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. We cannot wait to see you there. And I always have a good time with Mr. Romano. With that being said, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I had made promises, and I keep my promises, because when I don't keep my promises, that sits on me. There's not a promise I don't, when you make a promise, you got to keep those promises, right? And so it's important to not only make them, but keep them. And I made a promise that I would go to every one of the NFL teams, all 32 NFL franchises, and I would tell you what I believe they need in this year's draft. We're going to start in the AFC, then we're going to go to the NFC. It's going to be AFC, North, South, East, West, NFC, North, South, East, West. And if I know someone who's connected to a team, I will shout them out as a fan and show them some love. We're going to start in the AFC North and the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens brought in my guy as a backup quarterback, and I'm ecstatic about this because I said a couple years ago when people were saying, Syracuse won these games at the beginning of the season, but they didn't beat anybody. And I turned around and said, Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, he's an NFL quarterback. Malik Cunningham from Louisville, he's an NFL quarterback. Well, Malik Cunningham got picked up by the Baltimore Ravens to back up Lamar Jackson with Josh Johnson. And I love that. And I'm very excited about it, and I'm looking forward to it. They brought in Derrick Henry. They finally let go of J.K. Dobbins, who is often injured but also very talented, and hopefully he'll stay without injury this year, and we can actually see a full season with J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards has gone too. They're both going to the Chargers, and in something that I said on the show yesterday, John Harbaugh needs to stop telling Jim Harbaugh, his brother, how good these guys are on the team, because Jim Harbaugh not only took guys off the team, but he also took people from the front office with the Ravens. I think John, from here on out, is going to be very selective on the information he gives Jim about the Ravens and who's good in the building, because the new look Chargers are being built by having some former Ravens in the front office and some former Ravens on the field, including both running backs, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So back to Baltimore. They got Derrick Henry. I thought this was a move Chicago should have made. Good for Baltimore to do this. They got Zay Flowers, who I covered in college. Big time respect for Zay. They have Nelson Aguilar. We'll see what happens here. Rashad Bateman. I think one of their needs, and I'm going to go through each team here. Like I said, we're going to go by division, and we're going to break down these teams. Taking a look at the Baltimore Ravens, I feel like receiver is something that they should look at in this draft. I think it's something that listen, they talk about depth of receiver, and there's a bunch of receivers, and the fact of you can go at different points in the draft and pick somebody up. Well, the Baltimore Ravens, to me, should go with a receiver at some point. This is one of their needs that I find heading into the NFL draft. I like Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman, we'll see, how he pans out, because I haven't been overly moved by him. But the Ravens, keep in mind, are not going to pick until 30 in the first round. But I do think that, and we're talking the whole scope of the draft, not just the first round. We're talking team needs heading into the draft. I believe that they need a wide receiver. Tight end wise, they got a fantastic tight end in Isaiah Likely backing up Mark Andrews. He's arguably the best backup in the nation to a guy that's already really good. I think that they could bring in some help on their offensive line. I think, beyond that, as I look at some of these other pieces, they got some injuries in the offseason to their linebackers. They might want to shore that up, and they might want to build some depth at defensive back as well. So, if it was me, I would say wide receiver, offensive line, defensive back, and potentially linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. They could look at bringing in a running back later on in the draft just because the guys that they've had have been often injured. You do have Derrick Henry, so I don't think you have to spend an early pick on it unless you really fell in love with a guy and you think that they're going to share the ball. But I think the needs for Baltimore, wide receiver, offensive line, linebacker, and then looking at the DB help is where I think they should go. They got the best kicker in football, in my opinion, in Justin Tucker, so I'm not concerned with that. Staying with the AFC North, we're going to move into the Cincinnati Bengals, and my guy Johnny Fordyce, big-time Cincinnati Bengal fan, works at the Wildcat Sports Pub, does a tremendous job. Go in there, say hi to Johnny, tell him DT sent you, and be nice to him. Okay, don't say DT sent you and then be rude. Don't ever be rude, and respect the people in the kitchen that are making your food and working their butts off. Johnny always has flour on him somewhere. He's always got some type of flour on him, and that's because he's out there making the pizzas, killing it, working his tail off. Got a lot of respect for Mr. Fordyce, and I've spent a lot of years around him, so God bless you, man. And you said that there's certain things that your team needs. You also said they need a Johnny Fordyce, and they do have an opening at that third quarterback, Johnny. So if you can sling it a little bit, they do have an availability there. And remember, they can carry that emergency quarterback on their roster on game day. So maybe that's where you fit in, Johnny. As far as quarterback, they got Joe Burrow. Jake Browning is still there. I thought somebody was going to make a play for him. I thought he had some potential. I mean, maybe he could still be a draft night thing, right? Maybe a trade to the Minnesota Vikings or something. But, you know, he's a good insurance policy for Joe Burrow. Zach Moss from the Buffalo Bills is now, and then the Houston Texans. He is also with the Cincinnati Bengals now. Chase Brown, who Johnny's a fan of here, our resident Central New York Bengal fan. Chase Brown, he's big on Chase, and Chase is there looking to potentially take over here. You got Jamar Chase as well. So you got Jamar Chase and Chase Brown, two Chases, and we'll see if anybody can catch him this year. T. Higgins, and I think they got to go another receiver. I think they got to go another receiver here. And I do, you know, Mike Gesicki coming in from the Miami Dolphins in recent history, that could be a really good thing for Joe Burrow. I think that Mike Gesicki was somewhat still under the radar even when he was respected. So Johnny said he's got a cannon. You and I talked about pickup football, man. I played pickup, you played pickup. I played quarterback, you played quarterback. Hey, let's go out there and sling it a little bit here. Let's see what you got, Mr. Fordyce. But the looking at the offensive line, they got some depth there. You know, I'm not feeling too concerned about that. You know, you bring in Trent Brown. On the defensive line, there's a bunch of depth here as well. You might want to get a little bit of, you got Jermaine Pratt at middle linebacker. They might want to make some moves in the world of linebacker for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know that Johnny really wants a tight end, and he wants to bring in Brock Bowers. Now, Brock Bowers, I was a fan of well before this year. You watch Brock Bowers play one football game and you become a fan of Brock Bowers. Now, the Bengals are drafting 18th, right behind my Jaguars at 17. So there's a chance that Bowers could be there. We'll see. There's also a chance that maybe Arizona takes him. Arizona hasn't had a tight end in a million years. So that could be I don't think Arizona is going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. With them trying out the DeAndre Hopkins thing and it didn't work out, and trying out Hollywood Brown and that didn't work out, I don't see Arizona going and getting another like high hyped wide receiver, because I mean, I don't think it's good for football to bring Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Arizona Cardinals, because it just seems like a place where a wide receiver goes and it doesn't work out and they eventually leave, and then you're just like, well, that was just wasted. I see him going to the Chargers, and we'll get to the Chargers later on. But, you know, for Cincinnati, I think if Brock Bowers is there, you got to take him. They might have to trade up a little bit to get him, but, you know, I also don't. I mean, it depends. It depends on where Bowers. I mean, if I look at this and I say, okay, let's say Arizona doesn't take Brock Bowers. Okay, so then you move on to the Chargers, and I think the Chargers take Marvin Harrison. I think the Giants take a quarterback. Maybe they take J.J. McCarthy, or they see who falls to them at that point. Do they take a Bo Nix? You know, there's different guys they could look at. Tennessee, Do they take a Brock Bowers? Potentially. They had Delaney Walker. They don't have that tight end. Atlanta's not going to take him. Chicago could. Chicago could say, hey, to whoever their quarterback is, I'm going to go and get you this big old tight end who's going to be a nuisance in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks, they made some moves at tight end. I don't think they necessarily take him, though. The Minnesota Vikings are in need of a tight end. They're also in need of a quarterback. So they're at 11. And then Denver needs a little bit of everything. So, yeah, I mean, I would think Brock Bowers is going to easily go within the top 12 picks, top 13 picks. So you might have to trade up to get him. But I do agree Cincinnati can bring in a tight end. I think that they need one. I like Mike Gesicki. I really do. And I think you're going to be fine with him, Johnny, just so you know. But I do think, Brock Bowers, that's a move to make. And then also with Cincinnati, you might want to do some things with your linebacker core. You may want to look at, offensive line can always be helpful, but they made some moves to bring in, somebody on their offensive line. So I think wide receiver, tight end, those are the areas I'm looking at, and at linebacker for the Cincinnati Bengals. And Johnny can tell me if he agrees or disagrees with that. But we're going team by team, division by division, and I'm giving you my advice on what I think these teams need in the NFL. We're doing all 32 NFL teams. So we're going to go to the Cleveland Browns next because we're going in alphabetical order by division. We're doing north, south, east, west, starting in the AFC. So alphabetical order brings us to the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns now have many last year they played, 5 quarterbacks? They got 4 on the roster right now. You got Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford. You brought in Dante Foreman, who was originally drafted by the Texans. I don't think that they make any moves at running back. That would seem like too much. You got Elijah Moore, who I wasn't sold on when he was a Jet. You have Jerry Jeudy, who I was feeling good about. I'm kind of like teeter-totter with Jeudy, and I still am. Amari Cooper, I still don't know why Dallas got rid of him. And then you have David Njoku and Jordan Akins, who I covered in college. He was at UCF. So, I like those pieces. I think they definitely need to go offensive line. They got a lack of depth here, and they have a ton of guys on the injury report heading into the 2024-25 season. I think, Myles Garrett and that defensive line, I'm not overly concerned about that. They seem to have a lot of depth there. Again, I think they can get some help at the linebacker position as well as the corner position. So for the Cleveland Browns, I would say linebacker, I would say DB, and I would say offensive line for them. That's what I would be looking at. I would be looking at definitely linebacker, DB, offensive line. And wide receiver wise, you can look there too. I think they'll look there eventually. I don't know if they're going to look there early, but I think that, in those early, the third round, the fourth round, that kind of like second day, early on the third day, they could be looking at a wide receiver here to bring somebody else in, because again, I'm not sold on Elijah Moore. I'm just not. And Jerry Jeudy, I go back and forth with. The next team that we have up in the AFC North is going to take us to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, Pittsburgh, they definitely had some buyer's remorse on some of the decisions that they made, including quarterback Kenny Pickett, who was the only quarterback taken a couple of years ago in the first round. He was taken 20th overall. I predicted him to go from the Pitt Panthers to the Pitt Steelers, and he did. He is not there anymore. He's now backing up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. So you have Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and a guy I covered at Houston for the Cougars, and that's Kyle Allen, who I think people underestimate because he has been a starter in the NFL and he's been on a bunch of different teams. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, Cordero Patterson. I still think they might go running back in the later rounds here. I look at their wide receiver core, and you got a lot of guys that you're kind of wondering, who are they going to be? You got Denzel Mims, Calvin Austin III, Van Jefferson. Who are they going to be? George Pickens had some really good moments with Kenny Pickett, but I think you might have to go wide receiver here. You may have to go running back not necessarily early, but at some point. I'm a big fan of Pat Fryermuth, so I'm not worried about tight end. Offensive line depth could be a helpful thing here. They looking at some depth for. I mean, you got Cam Hayward and a bunch of these guys on the defensive line, but I think you could go offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, and yeah, I mean, I that's probably where I would sit. Maybe a DB, but I would say offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, maybe running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what I would be looking at here. And outside of that, I mean, you got 3 quarterbacks that are all newbies on the team. That's an interesting thing for a team that is not bringing in a drafted quarterback to have 3 guys that are veterans in the NFL of all different time that they've spent in the NFL. You bring in Russell Wilson, then you bring in Justin Fields. You also have Kyle Allen. That's going to be I would like to be on premises at training camp to see what that battle looks like at camp. Next thing that we're going to do is go to the AFC South, and in the AFC South in alphabetical order, we will start with the Houston Texans. And the Houston Texans, they got a lot. They got C.J. Stroud, obviously, as their quarterback. You got Joe Mixon. They kept Damian Pierce. You got Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs and Robert Woods, both former Bills. John Mechie III is going to have to prove himself here. And they kept Dalton Schultz and extended him. I think they need some help on the offensive line. They need guys to stay healthy, too. And, Tunsil is on the injury report. Kenyon Green is on the injury report. Howard's on the injury report going into the season. Some backups are. So I would say offensive line, definitely linebacker. You got 2020 there, who I covered in college, but there's a lack of depth at linebacker, I think is an understatement from what I'm looking at on their depth chart right now. You're returning the defensive rookie of the year and Will Anderson Jr. as one of your DNs. I think linebacker, and outside of that, I would say, I'm happy for MJ Stewart, by the way, of North Carolina that I covered, him finding a place on this team at strong safety. I would say linebacker, offensive line, maybe DB. That's where I'd be looking at for Houston. I think Houston's going to be dangerous. I think they're going to be a problem this year. I really do. So that's what I see. I mean, some people saying wide receiver, I guess is an insurance policy because of the injuries to Noah Brown and Tank Dell and Nico Collins at times. But you brought in a potential head case in Stephon Diggs, so I don't know how that's going to shake out for everybody, but we shall see. I mean, you could bring in another wide receiver. I wouldn't do it early. I think that would be a waste of what you've drafted already in the moves that you made. I also think your wide receiver room would be like, what do you need another one for? So the Indianapolis Colts, maybe if you want another return person. Indianapolis Colts next up here, Anthony Richardson, God willing, he'll have himself a full season. He did not have his full season as a rookie. He had a very shortened entrance into the NFL. Joe Flacco's there now, Mr. Reliable. Jonathan Taylor, and then you got Trey Sermon. I think you look at a backup running back. I think you could look at another wide receiver. So I'd say running back, wide receiver, tight ends. They got, right now on their depth chart going into training camp, the Indianapolis Colts have 7 tight ends. That's just greed. That's corporate greed. No, I'm kidding. So I'm kidding. So, but it's funny because I said corporate greed, right? And well, I said greed, and then I said corporate greed, and then the name of their stadium is Lucas Oil Stadium, and greed and oil, and you get it. So, just having some fun on a Friday. No offense, Colts. I have all the respect in the world for you. So, maybe offensive line. I think running back. I think wide receiver. I think tight end. It's funny. They have 7 tight ends, but I'm not sold on any of them. That's why I'm saying tight end. And then I'm also saying a lot of these teams, depth at linebacker. I'm saying linebacker and maybe DB for the Indianapolis Colts. So, yeah, that's where I would be on that. And next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. My favorite team in the comfort of my own home. Impartial when I'm on the broadcast. I don't pick them to win every game. And there was people coming up to me last year going, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. You never heard that come out of my mouth. You know, I might have said that they're capable, but I never predicted Super Bowl for the Jaguars. You know, there's a lot of work to be, and they had to show me 2 consistent seasons. Making the playoffs in back-to-back years is atypical for the Jaguars. So that's something that I pay attention to. I don't just willy-nilly say something because I like a team. That's a cardinal sin of broadcasting and journalism in general, to just be a homer. I don't believe in that, and I've never been that way. Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, C.J. Beathard, they don't need a quarterback. They don't need a running back because they drafted Tank last year, and they decided to keep Dearness Johnson, who's the third-string guy, and you have Travis Etienne Jr. Maybe they take one in the later rounds. Maybe they take it in round 6 or 7. Wide receivers, I think they could bring in another wide receiver to Jacksonville. You know, Tim Jones, he's done some things, and he stayed on the roster. Elijah Cook stayed on the roster. Parker Washington stayed on the roster. Obviously, their 3 guys right now are Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Zay Jones. Devin Duvernay, who they brought in for Baltimore, is probably going to be the return man with Jamal Agnew not being on the roster anymore. They don't need another tight end. If they get a tight end, I'm going to lose it. They need offensive line help. They need depth. And they also need to look at their strength and conditioning and the amount of time they spend on stuff and nutrition and everything, because their offensive line has gotten injured, especially when you look at the left tackle and the blind side of the quarterback. Jacksonville has dealt with consistent issues with offensive line health and having all 5 starters together for a season, and they've changed coaching staffs repeatedly during this time that I've watched this happen firsthand. So, you know, I can't say that it's necessarily, you know, the personnel, because the coaches have changed, but there's something that's not working in Jacksonville, and they need to pinpoint it and they need to correct it. But I do think they need offensive line help. They definitely need help on the defensive line. Linebacker, I consider to be their strongest room, arguably. They could get a linebacker in like the 6th round. They could go later. And they brought in DB help, but Darnell Savage, who was brought in, he is being looked at as helping out kind of wherever. Cornerback, safety, from what I'm looking at. So, you know, they could bring in another DB to create more depth, so you're not relying on, because Jacksonville did that in the past. They had like the same name on the offensive line. They had Tyler Shatley at guard, I think, and at center they had got the same name guy backing up 2 or 3 positions, which shows you, like, not only do you really need that guy, but you also really need to bring in other guys, and you need some depth and some help. So I think for Jacksonville, maybe wide receiver, definitely offensive and defensive line, maybe linebacker and DB is what I would say. I mean, they absolutely need, and that's what I'm seeing, and they absolutely need it. One of the mock drafts I saw, of the 7 picks the Jaguars had, they had 5 of them being offensive and defensive linemen, and then the last 2 being like whatever, you know, linebacker or running back, you know, whatever from there. But I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think they really need help on the offensive and defensive line, and I think it is clear. And I don't think that there's anybody that's watching the Jaguars with any type of intelligence that would disagree with me that they could very well spend this whole draft on the offensive and defensive line, and I wouldn't be mad at it in any of the slightest, in any way, shape, or form. Tennessee Titans, AFC South, let's take a look at what they need. They got Will Levis. They brought in Mason Rudolph, and they kept Malik Willis, drafted Levis and Willis. Mason Rudolph was supposed to be the potential heir apparent to the Ben Roethlisberger retirement, but that didn't work out in Pittsburgh, nor did Kenny Pickett work out in Pittsburgh. So we are where we are right now in Pittsburgh, and Will Levis is the guy in Tennessee. I don't think that they're going to go quarterback. They are drafting pretty high up here. The Tennessee Titans will have the 7th pick, and typically they go for a wide receiver there because they can't help themselves. But they have DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Calvin Ridley. They're going to see what Treylon Burks does, I guess, for another season, potentially, if they don't get rid of him before that. And then they have Nick Westbrook, Ickheim there. So I think they go offensive line. They may go wide receiver. They have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, Hassan Haskins, and Julius Chestnut. So I don't think they should go wide receiver, but the Tennessee Titans have been like very tempted by drafting wide receivers very early within those first 10 picks, whether they need them or not. So I think they could go there. I think they should go offensive line. I think they should go tight end. They could take Brock Bowers. That could be a terror to the rest of the teams in the AFC South. I think they got to look at their D-line. Linebacker, I don't feel terrible about. My guy Harold Landry and Arden Key, both of my guys are there. Shout out to them. But I think for Tennessee, I would say DB, defensive line, offensive line, and maybe they go wide receiver just because they're and tight end. Definitely tight end. I think they really have to look at Brock Bowers at number 7. So that's the AFC South. Now we're going to do the East. And if you're just tuning in with us, I am giving you a breakdown of the NFL draft, of what I think teams need going into the NFL draft. And this is all 32 franchises, North, South, East, and West, starting in the AFC. So we're going to move over to the AFC East, which will get me started in alphabetical order in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills that so many people in the state of New York have so much love for, and people around the world. You don't need a quarterback. Shane Buechele, who I covered at SMU, shout out to him for getting a chance here. But you got to get a running back. I like James Cook. I backed James Cook before I think a lot of people did. I covered him when he was at Georgia, interviewed him when he was at Georgia. They need a running back. They need wide receivers. S-Z, many S's, whatever you want to call it. They need wide receivers. I like Shakir. I like Khalil Shakir, but they need receivers. They can look at running back. They can look at offensive line. They can definitely look at linebacker and DB because of all the injuries that this team has suffered, unfortunately, over time. So I think they have to look at that too. And they could look at linebacker. I think there's a lot of help that the Buffalo Bills need this year. And yeah, I mean, offensive line, linebacker, DB, wide receiver, times 2 at least, if not picking up a third one later, and maybe running back. Buffalo's got a lot of needs. I'm sorry, Bills fans. Don't be mad at me. Don't hate. And just so you know, our live first-round mock draft is going to happen on the night of the actual draft. Live first-round mock draft will happen Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time at Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. Al Romano and myself, Dan Tortora, will be on site, on stage at Pizza Man in Baldwinsville on draft night. At 6 p.m., we will start our first-round mock draft. We will go pick by pick. I will defer to Al. Al will give his pick. I'll give my pick, or we might do even odds. Al and I we're not going to look at each other's first-round mock draft, so we're going to be surprised in the moment like you, and maybe we agree and maybe we don't. We're going to go picks 1 through 32. Al will give his. I will give mine, and any trades we think might happen of teams moving up. And from there, we will go into the draft itself, which will start at 8 o'clock, and we'll watch the draft with you while we have some pizza and wings at Pizza Man. So we look forward to seeing you out there for our live mock draft of the first round on the night of the first round of the draft. Thursday, April 25th, mock draft on Wake Up Call at 6 p.m. on stage at Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York, followed by the draft itself on the televisions at Pizza Man at 8 p.m. So we look forward to that with you. We're keeping with the AFC East. Now let's take a look at the AFC East. So, and I also want to shout out, there's many a Bill fan. As I just did the Bills thing, I want to shout out Shane, my guy Shane, over at the Wildcat Sports Pub as well. Go and check out Shane and all the work that he does. I just said go and check out. What I meant was like go to the Wildcat, check out everything they have, and enjoy your time with Shane. If you want, hey Shane, I don't know if you're single, man, and the ladies want to come there and check you out. Hey, I just gave you my endorsement, I guess. But yeah, go see Shane, go see Johnny at the Wildcat. Shane, a Bills fan. Shout out to Josh Gideon, the owner of GG Cards and Breaks and Gideon's Gallery. Obviously, Josh is a Bills fan as well. And, of course, Mark Walczyk, who's overseas serving in our United States military. God bless you, and please get home safe, buddy. I appreciate you more than I can ever tell you, and I love you dearly. He is a Bills fan. My buddy John Ball, who is a police officer and serves our country with the goodness of his heart. He is a Bills fan. I know so many Bills fans. Aaron Anderson, the head coach of the Liverpool girls lacrosse team, also a Bills fan. Catherine, Bills fan. So shout out to all the Bills fans that are out there and all the Bills fans that I know. I told you I'd give you some love and some shout outs, and that's what I'm doing here this morning because I keep my word. So next one up we have in the AFC East. We're going to go from the Buffalo Bills down the line here to the next team that we have to speak about, which is the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, they have Tua. They got Mike White from the Jets, third stringer, who did some good things. Shout out to that. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane and Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't think, injury-wise and things that have happened, I think they should probably pick up a running back at some point in this draft. I think they need to pick up another wide receiver for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They brought in Jonnu Smith. They have Durham Smythe. So, in Miami, their first pick in this draft is going to come at 21. So, I don't think they're going to get Brock Bowers there. They could trade up to get Brock Bowers. So, I mean, I would say running back for some insurance and some help there, and I'm not sold. See, the thing about Miami is they've been a running back by committee team where it's like, and you could turn around and say, Dan, who is it in today's NFL? But there are guys where it's like, that this is the one and that this is the two. Like, even when Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were going back and forth, Nick Chubb was the one, Kareem was the two. That's how it panned out to be. And when J.K. Dobbins was healthy, Gus Edwards was the two. Even though Lamar Jackson seemed to feel comfortable with him, he was the two or the three. So I think that they need some help at running back. I think they need some help at wide receiver. I think they potentially need some help at tight end. They need some help on the offensive line. They got a bunch of depth on the defensive line. Speaking of Miami, my guy Bradley Chubb from NC State, super proud of him. He's a linebacker out there with them. They got Shaquille Barrett. They got Melvin Ingram, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. So I'm not concerned about their linebacker core. I think they definitely need some help at safety and at DB in general. So I would say for Miami, running back, tight end, wide receiver, O-line, and defensive back, if not specifically stating safety. And with the way the early part of this draft is going, maybe Miami has a safety fall right into their lap. Could be some help for them there in the DB world. And then, or just DB in general. Next one we have up here for the AFC, we are going to move on to the New England Patriots as our next team here in our team-by-team, division-by-division assessment of what they need heading into the draft here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So the Patriots, they got Jacoby Brissett, Bailey Zappi, and Nathan Rourke. They need a quarterback. The Patriots need a quarterback. Now, there is the thought that they're going to end up with Daniels. Maybe they're going to end up with Drake May. They're going to be picking third. I think they're taking a quarterback. So they should take a quarterback. They should also look at taking a running back at some point. They should look at taking a wide receiver. They definitely need they need multiple wide receivers. So they need a quarterback, they need a running back, they need a wide receiver, they need offensive line help. This is why they're picking third. They need a lot of help. And they need help at defensive back, I would argue, potentially. Well, I have Christian Gonzalez and Jabril Peppers. Maybe not. Maybe that's a later round thing. But I would say defensive line, potentially. I would say but definitely offensive line, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, definitely quarterback first for the New England Patriots. I don't even think it should even be a conversation. It should be what quarterback are we taking, not are we taking a quarterback. And then we're going to round out the AFC East with the New York Jets, and going to the Jets here. And what the Jets need, they need their quarterback to stay healthy. They brought in Tyrod Taylor as an insurance policy, which I totally understand. I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers play football again for the New York Jets. He's wearing the same green, forest green. Get it, girl. So maybe it's not. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit darker than the Green Bay green. But Aaron Rodgers, will see. Israel Abanikanda, I covered him with the Pitt Panthers. I like Breece Hall, obviously. They could go after another running back. They have Mike Williams, who comes in injured, which is one of the reasons why I think he couldn't stay with the Chargers, but we'll see how things go here. They have Alan Lazard, and they have Xavier Gibson, who stepped up last year, and of course they have Garrett Wilson, who they drafted in the top 10 picks, which I predicted a couple of years ago. I think that they got to look at Brock Bowers. I think, the Jets, with their draft, they're going to be picking right before the Jaguars, right? Let's see here. The Jets, I don't know why I'm befuddled by this right now, but the Jets first, oh no. No, the Jets, will they trade out of this thing? So, yeah, I don't think they're getting Brock Bowers. I'm looking at this right now, and I'm trying to remind myself of what's going on here. But yeah, so the Jets to me, I mean, they trade into the first round to get Brock Bowers, but they need a tight end. They potentially need another running back. They need another wide receiver, even though they brought in Mike Williams. They could get some help on the defensive line. They need some help in depth at linebacker and some help definitely at safety. So the Jets, in my opinion, need a lot. So that's the AFC East. We're going to go to the AFC West before we take our final step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So we're going to go to the AFC West, and the AFC West is going to take us first and foremost in the AFC West as we go to the Denver Broncos. And with the Denver Broncos, they need a lot too. They need a quarterback. They need probably a running back behind Javonte. They need some help at wide receiver. They need potentially some help on the offensive line. And maybe linebacker. I would say a lot of their stuff lies with quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end for the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos are going to be drafting at number 12. That could be a Brock Bowers moment. Could be a J.J. McCarthy moment. Could be a trade up and go get a quarterback moment, which I think is what has some likelihood of happening for Denver. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of help. Next team, they've needed help for many years. Basically, since Peyton Manning and Tim Tebow, this team hasn't had a quarterback. And that's really unfortunate. Very unfortunate for that franchise. Kansas City is the next one up here. Kansas City needs a quarterback. I'm kidding. So, Kansas City, they got Patty Mahomes. They got Carson Wentz now. Who thought that was going to freaking happen? You got Pat Mahomes and you got Wentzy on the same team. So these are guys that could have played against each other in the Super Bowl, and now here we are. So they decided to keep Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they have Isaiah Pacheco. Rashee Rice, we'll see what's going on with Rashee, and he's going to be in virtual meetings. They need help at wide receiver. They brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown from the Cardinals, but I still think they need help at receiver. They definitely need help on the offensive line. They are mega lacking depth right now as it stands. Could get some linebacker help. And maybe they look at defensive line, but I think Linebacker, definitely offensive line, wide receiver, and maybe running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion. They could go running back, but they definitely need some help on the offensive line and at wide receiver, and that is an absolute do it early in this draft. Kansas City, moving on from Kansas City, shout out to my man Brandon, Mr. Smith, that I was the best man at his wedding for him and Kirsten. Shout out to them and their kids and their families, and much love to you all, and God bless you as always. I miss y'all. He is my Kansas City fan. The Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, they got a shout out to the boom. Aiden O'Connell. What did I say? Did I say Aiden O'Connell was going to be a quarterback in the NFL, going to find success in the NFL? Oh, what's he doing now? Oh, he's starting for a franchise. Oh, was he drafted high? Oh, he wasn't drafted high. Oh, okay. Okay, so when Syracuse played Purdue and they beat Purdue and people said, oh, they're beating chump teams, I think Aiden O'Connell has proven my point here. I'm also collecting Aiden O'Connell because I am buying low and hopefully selling high. Aiden O'Connell is there. Anthony Brown, another guy I covered in college. Shout out to Anthony. And Gardner Minshew, who I covered in Jacksonville. Got all these guys that I have some connection to in covering a game or covering, one of their teams and whatnot, or being in touch with these guys. So shout out to them. Alexander Madison, Amir Abdullah, behind Zamir White, who I also covered in college. I think they're going to have to go running back. I think they're going to have to go wide receiver. They're one of the teams that doesn't have a lot of wide receivers. They have as many wide receivers currently on their depth chart as they have tight ends. They have 5 of each. I think Michael Mayer, he's got to stay healthy, man. But I think running back, wide receiver, definitely offensive line, linebacker, they need depth there. And maybe they could look at a DB somewhere in this draft. That would be something to look at for the Raiders. But they need help. They need some help. I don't think that this team could be a bad team, but you're in the same division as Kansas City, and you got to make some money moves right now. I mean, you got Devontae Adams, but is Trey Tucker going to step up? Jacoby Myers? Who's going to be your guy? DJ Turner? Who's going to be your guy that's not named Devontae Adams? That's the question. Maybe they go out and get somebody when you have the opportunity at a bunch of different receivers in the draft. The Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. You got Justin Herbert. You're good there. You got Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They could get a running back later. They definitely have to get a wide receiver. They have Darius Davis, who's young in the game. They got Quentin Johnson, who's young in the game. They have Josh Palmer, who's the longest vet in the NFL, but has never been the guy unless Mike and Keenan both got injured, and then Josh had to step up. But even in those moments, so they definitely have to go wide receiver. I think they go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5th overall, which I think would have Jim Harbaugh smiling ear to ear, playing right into his hand. The NFL would be. They need offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, DB, corner, and safety. The Chargers need all types of help. But I think you definitely got to go and get those weapons, and I think that they get Marvin Harrison Jr. with their 5th overall pick, in my opinion, is what they should do. So with that being said, we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. Wake Up Call will be back here where sports meets life to give you my assessment of every team in the NFC, what they need heading into the NFL draft, which starts this Thursday, April 25th, and you can come see us do our first round mock draft, picks 1 through 32. Al Romano gives his picks. I give mine. 6 p.m. on stage at Pizza Man, 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. We will be there on draft night, Thursday, April 25th. Our mock draft starts at 6. The actual draft starts at 8. Hear our mock draft, agree or disagree, and then see if we were right or wrong when the draft goes on, all while enjoying some drinks. Drink responsibly if you're of age. If you're not of age, and don't drink any of that alcohol at all. And, of course, have some awesome food, pizza and wings and everything that they have to offer at Pizza Man Pub. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back with the NFC right after this as Wake Up Call brings you through every 30 every team in the NFL, all 32 NFL franchises team needs heading into the 2024 NFL Draft. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Kampground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Kampground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Kampground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Kampground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and Kampground spelled with a K.com. K9Kampground.com.
When you're going out out of town, bring your dog to Canine Kampground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Under promise, over deliver, as we will be bringing you beyond 2 hours here as we have to continue to talk about the NFL. I gave you my word that we were going to cover every single of heading into the NFL draft. You can have an even more exciting draft night this Thursday, April 25th, when you come out to Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York, where I will have a live first-round mock draft with Al Romano, Pitt Panthers national champion, who played on the defensive line and came from Solvay right here in our community of Central and Upstate New York. This Thursday, April 25th, on draft night, Al and I will be bringing you into the NFL draft with our mock draft. That's going to be happening Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. at Pizza Man Pub. Al and I will go through all of the first round picks 1 through 32, and we'll lead you right into the draft itself, which will officially start off at 8 p.m. So come out to Pizza Man, grab some food and drinks, have some fun with us, see what you agree with, see what you disagree with, and then watch the draft after we give you our mock draft. So we're going to be bringing you in, priming you up, and giving you all the information. We're going to be giving you a ton of information and getting you feeling like you're at the draft itself. That's going to happen on stage at Pizza Man Pub, and it's going to happen worldwide on our social media and, of course, our channels that you can tune in on, which is where you are right now. You'll be able to watch and listen to this from anywhere in the world Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So you'll be able to watch our live mock draft of the first round going into the NFL draft on draft night, our mock draft of the first round happening before the first round. So we tell you everything we think is going to happen, and then we watch what actually ends up happening all over pizza, wings, and friendship. Can't wait for it. Looking forward to it. And God bless Pizza Man and all of the incredible work that the Delia family is doing. I appreciate them so very much, and I thank them for all of their hard work, dedication, and determination. And I love being in partnership with them. So God bless Pizza Man and all of the amazing work that they do. Time to get into the NFC. Let's do that right now. In the NFC, we start north, south, we go north, south, east, west. And in the north, south, east, west, we go alphabetical order in each division. So that's how we're going to start things off. In the NFC North, we will start with Chi-Town, Chicago, the number 1 pick. Not only the number 1 pick, but the number 9 pick. And I think they could go quarterback and wide receiver. We shall see. They definitely have to get a quarterback. They brought in DeAndre Swift from the Lions, who went to the Eagles and swiftly left to head off to the Chicago Bears. This man hasn't been in the NFL that long, and he's already on his 3rd team. So hopefully this one works out. I think that Chicago can definitely go running back, but they don't need to go running back early here by any stretch of the imagination. I'm hoping that they do not go running back early here. and I don't think that would be good for them. They got to go quarterback. They brought in Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore, but I think they can still go wide receiver. They got Colin Johnson, who's one of the guys that came from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Shout out to him. But I like their, I mean, obviously they got to go quarterback, maybe running back, wide receiver. You got Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet, who have been around for a while, so they might want to go tight end. They might go Brock Bowers at number 9. Defensive line, linebacker. We're talking about defensive line, D-end and D-tackle. Linebacker, yes. So I think defensive line in general, I think linebacker, I think wide receiver, running back, and definitely quarterback for Chi-Town, for the Chicago Bears. They got to go after all that stuff, in my opinion. And tight end. And very well could be going for Brock Bowers at number 9. I think going at a wide receiver would probably be a better thing to do, in my opinion, with no disrespect to Brock Bowers. I think going wide receiver is better for them at number 9. I think quarterback definitely at number 1. But Chicago needs a lot. They need a lot. They're not the worst team in football. They got the number 1 pick because Carolina made a terrible trade. But they have the number 1 and the number 9, which is awesome, right? You know, I mean, that's great for them to have something like that. If you're a Chicago fan, you know, you have the opportunity to strike gold twice in the first 10 picks. So not a bad day as long as you do it right. The Detroit Lions, and isn't that the case with everything? Detroit Lions, they got Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker. I think they're good there. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs were a nice 1-2 punch here. Sometimes Gibbs-Montgomery, sometimes Montgomery-Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. I think they could still go another wide receiver. I think wide receiver, I like Sam Laporta at tight end. I think wide receiver, offensive line, D-tackle. I think wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, maybe that D-tackle position, linebacker, and safety is what I'm looking at for the Detroit Lions. They got a bunch of needs as well. So, and they got to shore them up. You got to figure that out. I think another wide receiver could do them some good, though. But defensively, they got to be able to lock it up, man. Detroit could have been a Super Bowl team last year. And some of that is Dan Campbell rolling the dice, and some of that is not stopping a play down the stretch. And, you know, but I think this team's got some weapons offensively. I think Detroit moves the ball. I just think that, you know, they need to be able to lock some things down. And Dan Campbell, I mean, you can flex your chest, but there's nothing weak or wussy about, you know, kicking a field goal or taking an extra point at certain times during the game. Green Bay, I hope, you know, Jordan Love, I hope he plays every game. I hope Sean Clifford, though, something like awesome. I just hope something good happens. Maybe he kills it in training camp. I don't know. Because I have some Sean Clifford cards and I have some numbered stuff. so like, you know, selfishly, I would love for Sean Clifford to do something where I could be like, yeah, sell these babies. But Josh Jacobs is in with A.J. Dillon now. It's not Aaron Jones anymore. So I don't think they're going to do anything with running back. I think at wide receiver, you got Romeo Doubs, you got Jaden Reed, Dontavius Wicks. These guys have stepped up at different points. Bo Melton, you got Christian Watson. So I don't think they're necessarily going to go wide receiver. It's funny because Green Bay, back with Aaron Rodgers, there was the notion that Aaron Rodgers wanted wide receivers and they weren't drafting them. Now I don't think they necessarily need them, but they also don't have Aaron Rodgers. They have to do offensive line. They need depth at offensive line. Their offensive line depth looks like the Jaguars' depth a few years ago, and that's not a compliment. So they need offensive line help. They need linebacker help on this team. They need safety help on this team, and maybe just in general looking at DBs, but safety, offensive line, linebacker, maybe wide receiver. They don't need it, though. They need the offensive line. They need the DB, cornerback, safety. They need linebacker help. I mean, they it's pretty clear. And you look at their depth chart, what Green Bay needs. So They need to do that. You know, they, like the Jaguars, should spend some time on the offensive and defensive line. I don't care if the picks are quote unquote sexy, which I think is a ridiculous term to use, but it's like, I don't care, you know, if it's not a flashy pick, because without an offensive and defensive line, you're not doing anything. I know I've echoed it a million times that I probably drilled it into your forehead, but I think George O'Leary would say good if that's the case, because he told me a long time ago, and I stick with it. If you are not building your team from the inside out, and you don't understand that you build in the trenches first, and you take care of your offensive and defensive line, if you don't build your team from the inside out, you're not going to win a championship. And if you don't know that that's where your team, that's where it all lies, that's where it starts, is the offensive and defensive line, then you probably should be doing something else. I agree with what he said. I don't wish anybody out of a job, but I agree with what he said. Now, looking at the Minnesota Vikings, I have no idea about the decisions that they've been making lately. They're very confusing to me, outside of bringing in Aaron Jones, but I still think they need another running back. I do believe they need another running back in Minnesota. They need a quarterback in Minnesota. It's funny, we talk about all these teams about quarterbacks and what do they need and da-da-da-da, and who are they going to pick up, and Chicago is going to get a quarterback, and Washington is going to get a quarterback, and New England is going to get a quarterback, and maybe Denver is going to get a quarterback, and Minnesota desperately needs a quarterback. They have Sam Darnold, they have Nick Mullins, and they have Jaron Hall, who they drafted recently. I'm not here to disrespect any of those guys when I say they desperately need a quarterback. I'm here to tell you what I think they need, and in what Minnesota, they need a quarterback. They're drafting 11. Maybe they trade up. Maybe they make a trade with Arizona. Maybe Arizona trades down, gets more draft capital. Minnesota needs a quarterback. We can talk all we want about Chicago, Washington, New England, the Giants at 6, but Minnesota needs a quarterback. So, like, they need a quarterback. I'm not saying that Sam Darnold can't play, but I'm not trusting him for a whole season. I'm not saying that Jaron Hall can't do some things, but I'm not putting him out there. I'm not putting Nick Mullins out there. They need a quarterback. They need a backup running back to Aaron Jones, and they need an heir apparent. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, if they stay healthy, they still need another wide receiver, in my opinion. Now, they're carrying arguably the most wide receivers going into camp. The Minnesota Vikings right now on the roster, on their depth chart, are carrying 11 wide receivers. But the household names are Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Now, N'Keal Harry is there, who was drafted a few years ago by the New England Patriots and didn't work out there. Tristan Jackson, who played a season at Syracuse after coming from Michigan State, he's on the roster right now, and hopefully, God willing, he stays too. God bless, and shout out to the Orange. But they need to get another wide receiver, and they got to have somebody step up. TJ Hawkinson, I like him at their tight end. They absolutely need help on the offensive line. They need depth at left tackle. They need help in depth on the defensive line. They need help at linebacker. Minnesota needs a lot of help. And I know I've echoed that with other teams, but they do. They need a lot. They need a lot. Offensive and defensive line, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, absolutely. Don't be surprised if Minnesota trades up in the draft in the first round to get a quarterback. Don't be surprised if they do that. If they draft Brock Bowers, then they might as well just say the season's over. And that's not because Brock isn't talented, but that's not the pick that they need to be making. It's a pick that they very well could make at where they're drafting at number 11, but they should not make that pick because you have TJ Hawkinson, and who's going to throw to him? So there's some massive work that needs to be done in the NFC North and with the Minnesota Vikings. NFC South, let's go to the South here. We're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC South, and they have Kirk Cousins, who's entering in a big contract that was given to him by Atlanta, and he has an Achilles injury. So that's not great. They got rid of Desmond Ridder, my guy who I covered in college, and they kept They kept the man who wants you to keep your hands off his hiney. Taylor Heineke is there. They could go quarterback at some point. They can make a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix pick, actually. They're not going to go quarterback at number 8. If they do, then somebody needs to slap Atlanta. So, that somebody needs to go up there and just do that comedic slap, right? Little Saturday Night Live. But, yes, they need a quarterback, not in the first round. Bijan and Tyler Algier should be a good 1-2 punch. Hopefully they're going to be utilized better than in the last regime. As far as wide receiver goes, I like the Drake London thing. They got Rondale Moore. They have Darnell Mooney. They have guys that other teams took chances on. Ray McLeod that could all help out. Maybe Ray is going to return for you. You got Moons. You got Rondale. I covered Tulane. Mooney was at Tulane. I still think they need to draft a wide receiver. Kyle Pitts, for the love of goodness, please somebody use him properly, or else he should leave. They need some depth on the offensive line. They need some linebacker help. And defensive back, I don't think they necessarily are in desperate need of anything. So I would say linebacker, just got to hope these guys stay healthy on the defensive line. Maybe defensive line, linebacker, offensive line, wide receiver, and they're going to have to take a quarterback at some point. Atlanta's going to have to take a quarterback at some point. It's an insurance policy. I know they gave Kirk Cousins a ton of money, and I was surprised at how much money they gave him, but hey, man, go get your bag. I definitely think they need an insurance policy. Not because I think something's going to happen to Kirk Cousins, but you paid him a ton of money. He's older in the NFL, and he has an Achilles injury that he's healing from. Go get another quarterback. Trust me, Atlanta. I hope Kirk Cousins plays for the next 4 years and he plays healthy and he does a phenomenal job. You need the insurance policy, so go get one. The Atlanta Falcons start off the NFC South. From the Atlanta Falcons, we go to the worst team in football. A team that I said, when you keep changing your quarterback and changing your head coach, eventually you have to realize it might be a general manager problem, and they changed their general manager as well. Bryce Young is back at quarterback. We'll see how that goes. Andy Dalton's still in the NFL. That's cool. I like it. The Carolina Panthers, insult to injury, they're the worst team in football, and they gave up the number 1 pick this year to the Chicago Bears in the trade that they made to get Bryce Young. So worst team in football, and you don't get the number 1 pick. That's like the NBA with the lottery and how that goes. So Carolina will not be picking in the first round. I think they are picking in the first. No, they're not. They're not pick. They don't have one single first-round pick. I'm just double-checking to make sure, just to assess this. No pick in the first round. That's fun. Worst team in football doesn't have a first-round pick. Cool. So, they got a bunch of guys I covered in college. Raheem Blackshear, Mike Boone in their backfield at running back. I still think they should bring in a running back, though. They got Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. They got to bring in a running back. None of these guys, I think, is an every down back. They have Tariq Cohen. Remember him from Chicago. At wide receiver, they got Mingo, who they drafted. Terrence Marshall Jr., who they drafted. They brought in Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh, and they have Adam Thielen so good, but I still think they could get another wide receiver. I think wide receiver, running back, late quarterback maybe. Try to find a gem. Tommy Tremble is their tight end, the older brother of Jamie Tremble, who's coming to Syracuse, who has been on Wake Up Call. Love talking to Jamie. They need offensive line help in Carolina. They need defensive line help. Big surprise. Worst team in football. Building in the what? Trenches. How do you win championships? Okay, there you go. Case in point. They need offensive and defensive line help. Linebacker, maybe corner or DB. I could say Carolina needs everything, but they, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. Maybe they bring in another tight end, maybe a corner, linebacker. Yeah, yes. Maybe running back too, but definitely so many things Carolina needs. They need a lot of help. And hopefully Bryce Young put on some weight and is feeling more comfortable. See, the thing about Bryce Young that's not fair is that your first year in the NFL, especially as a rookie quarterback, you're going to make a ton of mistakes and you're going to throw interceptions and it's going to be difficult. Carolina has been a you-know-what show of a franchise in these last few years. Like I said, I mean, when you don't keep a coach for a calendar year, look at Arizona. When you don't keep a coach for 365 days, you're admitting you made a mistake. And when you're changing coaches and quarterbacks like underpants, that's not good. And then it becomes a front office problem and a GM problem. And then you got to change the GM, which Carolina did. So I don't blame Bryce Young for the lack of weapons. I don't blame Bryce Young for injuries with other guys. I don't blame Bryce Young for the offensive line. I don't blame Bryce Young for the head coach. I don't blame Bryce Young for the front office decision-making and for the general manager. I do want to see Bryce Young put on some weight, and I want to see him not look as shell-shocked deer in headlights as he looked last season. Granted, it was in the first couple games, but the look that he had on his face just made me feel like, oh, that's not the look I want my quarterback to have. But again, you know, your first year in the NFL, it can hit you. I did not like the quarterback class last year, and obviously C.J. Stroud stepped up, and I didn't honestly know enough about him, and I should have known more. But C.J. Stroud was a pleasant surprise, in my opinion. And beyond that, nobody wowed me. I predicted that Bryce Young would go first because I'm supposed to make a prediction based on the knowledge that I gain. But I would not have drafted him first. I wasn't sold on Bryce. I'm still not sold on Bryce. But I hope he does better. And I hope that he's a bright spot for this team. And I hope he's the right quarterback because you never want to waste a pick and you never want to waste a first overall pick. So, and Carolina was the worst team in football after getting the number one pick from Chicago. So, you know, they got a lot of needs. Quarterback is hopefully not going to be one of them. And we'll see. But I hope Bryce put on some muscle. I hope he put on some good weight. And I hope he's more comfortable out there. Next team up here in the NFC South, we're going to go to the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr is there. Taysom Hill's back at quarterback on here. They have 5 quarterbacks on the roster right now. Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, Nathan Peterman, Kellen Mond, and Jake Hayner. They have Jamal Williams, who's Old Faithful. He's proven me wrong. He's been really good. James Robinson from the Jaguars, who went to the Jets. He's there now. Kendre Miller's there. And Alvin Kamara. I still think they could go for a running back later on in the draft. Wide receiver-wise, they don't have a big room, and they've proven that if somebody gets hurt, it's, you know, a lot of non-household names trying to make it work over the last couple of years in New Orleans. Michael Thomas isn't there anymore. That was such a... I want them to do a 30 for 30 on what actually happened with Michael Thomas. Was he injured? Did he not want to play? Did the organization not like him? Was he a head case? Like... What's the real, was he mistreated? What's the real story of Michael Thomas? Because I don't think we've ever gotten it. But I told you Olave would be the number one guy when he went there, and he's the number one guy, you know. I do think that they need to draft multiple receivers in this NFL draft, though, in 2024. Maybe a late running back, definitely multiple wide receivers, definitely offensive line, some help on the defensive line, some help at linebacker as well. Maybe some help at DB. They got the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and they have Marshawn Lattimore. So that's not an immediate need for me, but it could be something to look at down the stretch. Some people have that they need a quarterback. They have 5. Now, are these guys necessarily going to be starters on another team? No. But you got, you know, Hayner and Mond, those are young guys. Taysom Hill, he plays everywhere. So, you know, if one of these guys in Mond and Hayner can step up and maybe one of them goes to another team, then Derek Carr's got a backup, and then he's got Taysom Hill as an emergency, as a wildcat. But, give Derek a little bit of faith, for goodness sakes, my goodness. Next team that we have up here in the NFC South is going to take us to Tampa, in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we talk about the NFL draft here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, going to all 32 teams, starting in the NFC, then starting in the AFC, and going to the NFC. AFC North, South, East, West, NFC North, South, East, West. We're in the NFC South right now. We got 2 divisions to go after this. We got to go to the Bucs before we finish up the South. The Bucs have Baker Mayfield. That man has stepped up. I thought Kyle Trask was going to get an opportunity, but holy mother. Baker proved, he proved me wrong. I thought he was going to have some time, and then Trask was going to get an opportunity. That didn't happen. So shout out to him. Sean Tucker, who went undrafted out of Syracuse, one of the best backs to ever live and play for the Orange, number 34. What's up, Tuck? Tuck had him. He made the team, made the Bucs as an undrafted free agent, stayed on the team the whole year, and he's still on the team. He did what Kingsley Jonathan did with the Bills. Huge shout out to these guys, earning their keep. Rashad White's there, Chase Edmonds. I don't think they necessarily need a running back. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are both back with the Bucs, which was great news for them. They need another wide receiver, though. Got a lot of non-household names out of that. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody when I'm saying that. I'm just saying they need another wide receiver. They need a tight end. They have Kate Otten, but I think they got Payne Durham, too, who I covered in college. Payne Durham was a pain in the tush, and he played with Aiden O'Connell because he was also on Purdue when Purdue played up against Syracuse. But I think they could go tight end. They can go offensive line. They need some depth there. They can maybe go linebacker. I feel all right about the defensive line. They got a 3-4 system. And they definitely need help at safety. And probably DB in general. So I would say that for Tampa. DB in general, safety, probably corner too, wide receiver. Some people, and linebacker, some people say running back. If Chase or Sean can be your 2 with Rashad being your 1, I could see them drafting somebody later on day 3 of the draft, which is round 4 through 7, but I don't think that it's a need, necessarily. We're going to go to the NFC East now, and as we head to the NFC East, and the first team that we're going to talk about in the NFC East will take us to the Dallas Cowboys. Before we get there, I do want to remind everybody that the NFL draft coverage is only just begun. We will be on site on location at Pizza Man Pub this coming Thursday, April 25th. I am ecstatic about this. On Thursday, April 25th, we will have our live mock draft. Al Romano and I will be joined together on stage at Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. Thursday, April 25th, 6 p.m. Our mock draft starts for round 1. Al and I will go pick by pick, round 1, picks 1 through 32. When we finish and we sit down to eat some pizza and wings with you, the draft will start itself. So we're going to mock draft you through dinner starting at 6 o'clock, and that'll bring you right into the actual first round of the draft, which happens at 8 o'clock. So your draft headquarters has to be Pizza Man Pub this Thursday, April 25th, 6 p.m., live mock draft of the first round, bringing you into the first round of the NFL draft with college football national champion Al Romano and myself, Dan Tortora, in a wake-up call special draft edition at Pizza Man Pub on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. The NFC East starts with the Dallas Cowboys in alphabetical order. Dak Prescott going through some stuff off the field. Hopefully, things are going to be working out for the betterment of everybody involved in that case. He has not been offered an extension. They need a running back. They brought in Royce Freeman. They need a running back. They need help at wide receiver. They could bring in a quarterback late. They brought in Trey Lance last year. But Dallas could behoove themselves to maybe they get a J.J. McCarthy if he falls. I don't know if he's necessarily going to fall, but if he does fall, maybe they do that. The Cowboys are not picking until 24. I would love for them to get Brock Bowers, but they're not going to get Brock Bowers at 24. They're going to have to trade up for Brock Bowers. So, running back, quarterback, they could get Michael Penix or Bo Nix. I think Dallas has to go quarterback at some point in this draft. But before that, running back, wide receiver. Jake Ferguson filled in well at tight end. They need depth on the offensive line. That's an understatement. They need depth at defensive line. They need depth at linebacker. And they might need some help at DB as well. So I would say assess offensive and defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, and running back, and then assess your quarterback and DB situation in Dallas. But Dallas, for being a team that's a playoff team, they definitely have some holes here, and they need to fill them. They need to have weapons on the offense at wide receiver and running back, and they need to figure out what they're doing with Dak. And I still think that they draft a quarterback later on, especially if one of these big-name guys starts to drop a little bit to a place where it almost seems ridiculous not to take him, right? You know, if you got somebody in the 4th round or something like that. So Dallas Cowboys, first one from the NFC East. The next team that will hit in the NFC East is going to take us to the New York Football Giants. And what do they do with the 6th pick? What should the Giants do? And by the way, shout out to Jay, who's a Dallas Cowboy fan. Shout out to I'm gonna give shout outs too at the end for anybody that I missed, because I told people I'll be doing some shout outs today, and I'm definitely gonna do them at Sports Pub a few years ago, pre-COVID. And I walked in there on a Sunday, and there was a jersey for almost every one of the 32 NFL franchises, which just goes to show you that there are fans everywhere. And there was at least 20, 21 jerseys of the 32 that were in there. And I love seeing that. And that's why I think it's essential when you're a sports bar to have the ticket where you can watch every game. And I'm proud that Pizza Man and the Wildcat that I've worked with for many years, both of them, have the ticket. So you can go there, Pizza Man in Baldwinsville and the Wildcat in Camillus, and watch every NFL game every season. Awesome. Drew Lock is now with the Giants, and Daniel Jones is coming off of an ACL injury. God willing, he'll be okay. Tommy DeVito has been carried on the roster from Syracuse and Illinois history. A guy who grew up in New Jersey, and the Giants and the Jets being right there, and that making perfect sense of being like his team. So good for him on that, and I hope it continues. I think the Giants at 6 overall, they have to look at quarterback. Now, I covered Daniel Jones in college, and I respect Daniel Jones. I think they still have to look at quarterback. And I think that they absolutely have to look at wide receiver. They're another team that has a ton of wide receivers, but who's going to be the guy? Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah McKenzie, who came over from Buffalo, Wendell Robinson, who had some good moments, Darius Slayton, who was supposed to be the heir apparent to be the number one guy, but he hasn't been, Gunnar Olszewski. They need wide receivers. They need a quarterback. They need another running back. They need some help on the offensive line. They need some help on the defensive line. They need some depth on the defensive line. And they need some help at safety, or DB in general. And the Giants have to figure this out. The Giants have not had wide receivers that have been consistently good and helpful. And they haven't had a number one wide receiver arguably since Plaxico Burress. That's not good. That was a long time ago. And now that they don't have Saquon and they have Devin Singletary, I mean, that's nice, but they need a running back. They're one of the teams that might need to go high on a running back in this draft, because running backs typically will fall. I'm not saying go for a running back at 6. I think they really need to take a look at it like the J.J. McCarthy's of the world and some people that'll be available there. I think they need to take a quarterback at 6. I mean, if they take Brock Bowers and just hope with Daniel Jones, I don't think that's going to be good for the fan base. I know the fans aren't always going to agree with you. You got to make the decisions you think are best, even when they're not popular. But I think the best thing for the Giants to do is to take a quarterback, and depending on what's available to them at 6. I mean, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there at 6, and for some reason the Chargers fall into a coma and don't take Marvin Harrison Jr., then the Giants should take Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a given. But let's say that the Chargers are working with 2% of their brain at the time. They're going to take Marvin Harrison. And then I think the Giants take a quarterback. But they do need a quarterback. They need a running back. They need wide receivers. Maybe some help on the offensive line. Definitely help on the defensive line. And some help at DB, safety, in my opinion, for the Giants. The next team that we're going to have here for the NFC East, going to every single team in the NFL, is going to bring us to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles, last year at one point, I called them the best team in football. And that's obviously liquid, right? Who's the best team in the first 3 weeks isn't necessarily going to be the best team, but in my opinion, at the time, they were the best team in football. Then they just fell right off. They absolutely felt like they disappeared, the Philadelphia Eagles. And, I mean, thinking about where they are right now, I mean, they really are in a place of, what is this franchise, which direction is this franchise going in? Is this franchise going in a direction of, all right, we got this, we just need to course correct? Or are they going to a place of, okay, that's nice that we can make it to a Super Bowl, but now we're going to be behind these teams in the NFC. This is a fork in the road year for Philadelphia. Now, Jalen Hurts is there, and Kenny Pickett's backing him up, and Tanner McKee and Will Grier. Remember Will Grier? Go Gators. Saquon's there now. Maybe they can finally have a healthy running back. Kenneth Gainwell is still there. I think they could go for a running back later in the draft. They got Devontae and A.J. Brown. They got Devontae Parker, who never really caught on. He was supposed to be the number 1 guy in Miami. You got Paris Campbell, who's been all over the place. You got Dallas Goedert, and they brought in C.J. Uzomah, so I don't see them taking a tight end. Philadelphia's first pick that they have this year is going to come at number 22. So maybe wide receiver? No. I shouldn't say that. I think they're good on quarterback. They could bring in another running back later. Offensive line, DB. I think maybe Philly goes, I mean, you're 22, so you'll see what the draft gives you, but I feel like maybe Philly goes defense or O-line. I mean, there's going to be plenty of wide receivers. I don't think they necessarily take one that early. They don't need a tight end, and I think their running back's going to come later. So I think Philly is offensive line or DB when they're picking. I think it's offensive line or DB. They could bring in another wide receiver, and maybe that's what they do at 22. We'll see who's left to them at 22. It could be flashy. It could make the fans happy, but Philly's got to stop teams from scoring, right? And, I mean, isn't that everybody's job? Is to stop a team from scoring a lot of points. I mean, you score a lot of points, that's great. But what about the other side? So, you know, when we look at Philadelphia and we look at their last year's output that they had and what they allowed, let's take a look at Philly last year. Philly gave up 32 points to the Bucks on the road in the postseason. They gave up 20 to a bad Patriots team. They gave up 28 to Minnesota, who wasn't that great. Gave up to 11 to Tampa the first time that they saw them last year. They gave up 31 to the Commanders, who were not good. They gave up 14 to the Chargers, or the Rams, pardon me. By the way, they won all these 5 games outside of the postseason game against Tampa. The teams they gave a bunch of points to, they still were able to beat them. They gave up 20 to the Jets and lost. They gave up 17 to Miami. They gave up 31 to Washington both times they played them. They beat them, but they gave up over 30 points to the Commanders. Gave up 23 to the Cowboys. Gave up 17 to Kansas City. That's not bad. Gave up 34 in an overtime win over Buffalo. Then they gave up 42 to San Fran, 33 to Dallas, 20 to Seattle in losses. Gave up 25 to the Giants the first time around, 27 the second time, lost the second one. Gave up 35 to Arizona. So, I mean, they gave up a bunch of points, but in a ton of these games, they were able to score enough. My thing is, eventually it caught up to them, right? Giving up the amount of points that they were giving up. So I think Philly maybe goes defense. Unless there's a really, really enticing wide receiver at 22, I think Philly goes defense or, DB, or I would say DB. Or maybe, make a big splash on the D-line. Or offensive line. Philly could go offensive line too. But I think, Philly's job is to try and keep these teams, especially these teams that aren't that great, from scoring a lot of points. One of those teams being the Washington Commanders, which brings us to the team that has the second overall pick in our coverage of every single team in the NFL ahead of the NFL draft and what they need, in my opinion. The Washington Commanders, they have Marcus Mariota, they have Jeff Driscoll, and Jake Fromm. They need a quarterback. I think they're going to get Drake May. Or Jaden Daniels. But I think it's between the two. I'm actually going to put that up as a poll on X. If you're the Washington Commanders, which one do you take? Jaden Daniels or Drake May? I want to see what you think. So I'm going to put that up now. They brought in Austin Eckler. They have Brian Robinson Jr., and they parted ways with Antonio Gibson. So I'm going to put this up right now. If you were the Washington Commanders, this is going on X, @CallDT. So if you're not following me, make sure you go to X, the former Twitter, and follow me right now, and you can vote in the poll. If you were the Washington Commanders, who would you take at quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft between Jaden Daniels and Drake May? I want to know who you would pick. So I'm putting this up right now. It's going to be a poll on our X feed, former Twitter. So X @CallDT. That's @CALLDT. Who are you taking? Jaden Daniels or Drake May? If you're the Washington Commanders and you have the second overall pick in this year's draft and you're going to take a quarterback, which quarterback are you going to take? Are you going to take Jaden between these two? If you only had a choice between these two, are you taking Jaden Daniels or are you taking Drake May? I want to get your thoughts on it. I'm putting the poll out here, and I could put the poll out for 6 days because we got almost a week until the draft. So I can give you a bunch of days on this, but I want to see the votes. Hopefully, normally your votes come in very quick, and I appreciate that. So Jaden Daniels or Drake May, if you are the Washington Commanders, who do you draft? The poll is up. It is live on X @CallDT. That's CALLDT. Let's go to Washington. So they need a quarterback. Running back wise, Eckler's good, but he's got to stay healthy. Brian Robinson Jr. is good, but he's got to stay healthy. So I think they could go running back maybe on day 3. They got a bunch of wide receivers. They brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, who I covered at Virginia. Jamison Crowder is there, who I covered at Duke. Jahan Dotson, who I predicted to go exactly where he went, he's still there. And at the pick, I thought he was going to Philly. He ends up going to Washington, but that's because Washington traded the pick with Philly. But I had Jahan going in that space, and I think people thought I had Jahan way too high coming out of Penn State. Ended up being right where he was supposed to be. Terry McLaurin, he could play with anybody. Zach Ertz, he keeps bouncing around, man, but they're going to have to get it back up to Ertz. They need help on the offensive line. They traded away a ton of defensive linemen. They got Dante Fowler, who used to be a Jaguar. They do have Fowler, and they have Deron Payne, who I covered in college as well. You know, they also have Phil Mathis, who I covered in college, and Cleveland Farrell, who I covered in college. So a bunch of guys here on Washington. And then Dante Fowler obviously covered in Jacksonville. They need help at linebacker. They need help at DB. I would say linebacker, DB, offensive line, another wide receiver maybe, definitely a quarterback. Definitely a quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, and tight end. They need somebody else. And you guys have drafted right away, or you've done what I hoped for, and you started to vote right away. So I said, who would you take? If you were the Washington Commanders and you were number 2 overall, what quarterback between these two? Jaden Daniels out of LSU or Drake May out of North Carolina? The early voting is in. 66.7% Jaden Daniels, 33.3% Drake May. Keep those votes going. Appreciate it. I'll give a update at the end of the show on who you're saying. The last division that we have to go to all 32 teams in my assessment of what they need heading into the NFL draft, it will find us in the NFC West, which will start with the Arizona Cardinals, who have the 4th overall pick. They have Kyler Murray. They brought in Clayton Tune, who I covered in college at Houston. They brought in Desmond Ridder, who I covered in college at Cincinnati. They got my man James Conner, who I'm a big fan of. They got Michael Carter, who I didn't think got a nice shake with the Jets. I still think they could bring in another running back. Wide receiver, they got Michael Wilson, who stepped up in a huge way last year as a rookie. You got Greg Dortch, Chris Moore, Zach Pascal, bunch of non-household names. They need a receiver. You know, they need a receiver. And that's why I think some people are saying they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I think Arizona might trade down. But they do need a receiver. They need a running back, in my opinion. The votes continue to come in, and you're picking Jaden Daniels more than you're picking Drake May currently, just to give you all an update. But Arizona, running back, wide receiver, understatement. And it's no offense to anybody. They just need running backs. Offensive line, you know, they drafted Will Hernandez. They got some depth here in different places. Elijah Wilkinson is still there. I think defensive line, you can get some help. They got Zaven Collins, who I'm a big fan of. Zaven played linebacker in college at Tulsa, and I covered him there and interviewed him there. He's the highest drafted player out of Tulsa in recent history. Not he made history, but Zaven, you know, he's on their defensive line. He's an edge rusher for them. They could get some help on the defensive line. I think Arizona needs help, in certain. I mean, when you look at Arizona last year, and you talk about, Philly's points, if we look at Arizona didn't have a good season last season. And I understand Kyler Murray was out, and, they were 4-13 last year. They didn't make the playoffs, obviously. They gave up 20, 31, 16, 35, 34, 26, 20, 31, 27, 23, 21, 37, 10, 45, 27, 31, and 21. So you heard some of those numbers multiple times, not the good ones. So you heard 31, you heard that more than once. You heard a 35, you heard a 45. So Arizona's got to figure out their defense. They got the 4th overall pick. And if the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, which I think they will be, Arizona could take the best available defensive player. So in that case, that could be really good for them. You know, that could be a huge help to them. That they could have the first shot at taking the top defensive player. You know, and if we see these quarterbacks go the way that I think they're going to go, and let's say they don't take Marvin Harrison, then we could see, and I could see some of this stuff happening too. I mean, we could see the top defender going. Maybe it's Dallas Turner out of Alabama going to Arizona. I mean, Arizona's got to stop teams from scoring. And Kyler Murray, I don't know how long that project's going to last because, I mean, obviously you got to give him receivers and you got to give him healthy running backs and an offensive line. But, you know, I mean, you got depth at offensive line. Maybe you bring in some defensive linemen. Maybe you look at DB. But it stands to reason that Arizona should draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of they brought in these high-profile guys, DeAndre Hopkins, and not as high-profile, but Marquise Hollywood Brown, and it didn't work, and they parted ways with them rather quickly. So, especially with Hollywood. You know, I mean, this could be a Kyler Murray problem. It could be an offensive scheming problem. But if I'm Marvin Harrison, I'd probably rather go to the Chargers than to the Cardinals. I could see Arizona trading this pick. It makes sense to draft Marvin Harrison, but at the same time with Arizona doesn't make sense, and Arizona needs to stop teams from scoring, and Arizona might really need to go defense, and they might need to go Dallas Turner, or they might trade down and get more draft capital. Arizona needs a lot of help. You know, they got to stop teams from scoring, like I said, and, you know, they got to get a running back. They do need help at wide receiver, but, you know, their track record with wide receiver is not necessarily that, you know, they go get these high-profile guys, and they're not on the team a few years later. So are they going to go and draft a high-profile guy who's probably going to cost them a ton of money over time with Marvin Harrison Jr.? Or are they going to look at defense? Are they going to trade down in the first round and get some capital and say, hey, we're going to pick up 2 wide receivers and we're going to trade down and get we're not going to get Marvin Harrison, but we're going to trade down and, you know, maybe they trade with Minnesota. I could see that happening. You know, maybe Arizona makes a trade with Minnesota and Minnesota comes up and they draft J.J. McCarthy at 4th overall and Minnesota gives up number 11 and then Arizona's sitting pretty because they're going to get an potentially awesome wide receiver at 11 and they're just outside of the top 10. By the way, it's shifted to Drake May now in the poll. It started off Jaden Daniels heavy. Now it's Drake May, just so y'all know. So Arizona, they could do a lot of things. I think the most likely pick traded early is pick 4, is Arizona's pick. I do. I think that they can look at this as getting capital. I don't think I don't think that Marvin Harrison Jr., listen, he's a really good prospect. But it's Arizona, and if they trade down a few spots, like to 11 with Minnesota, they go down 7 spots, they're still going to get a receiver, and they're going to get more draft capital. That's what I see with Arizona. Now, if they take Marvin Harrison, I'm not going to be surprised. I just don't think it's going to be a good situation. That's how I look at it. I don't think it's going to be a good situation. I don't know if it's going to last. And with Arizona's track record of bringing a guy, a high-profile wide receiver in and then not sticking with him, I just feel like, let Marvin go somewhere else where this isn't going to be another one of those. Round 3 of that. And trade down and get somebody else. Bring them in and see what they can do. I think it behooves Arizona to trade down. And if we look at the Vikings draft picks, just because I think the Vikings have surprised me in the fact that they did not go and get a quarterback in the offseason that I'm thinking is going to be like their starter. So Minnesota could be relying on the draft and, looking to sneak up here. If we look at the picks that that Minnesota has, they have pick 11 in the first round. They have pick 23 in the first round from Cleveland through Houston. And then they have 2 4th rounders, 2 5th rounders, a 6th, and 2 7s. What if Minnesota really wants a quarterback and they give up both of their first round picks because they desperately want to go get a quarterback? And Arizona trades out of 4 for 11 and 23. Now Arizona can get a defensive player and a wide receiver. Now that's a lot of draft capital that Minnesota would be giving up. But Minnesota's got their they don't need another wide receiver. They can get another one, and I think they should, but they don't need one early. They need a backup running back. They're not going to draft one at 11. And they need a quarterback. We've talked about Minnesota and what Minnesota needs. Or they could give up a first round this year and a second round next year. I mean, they got 2 first rounders and 2 4th rounders and 2 5th rounders, a 6 and 2 7s. They could turn around to Arizona and say, we'll give you pick 11. We'll give you our earliest 4th rounder, which is 108, and we'll give you a 5th. We'll give you a 1st, a 4th, and a 5th. Or a 1st, a 4th, and a 6th. That could happen too. I think if they give up both first rounders, which I don't see Minnesota doing, because that's like, whoa, then you take it without even blinking. But I think Minnesota could be a good trade partner with the Arizona Cardinals at this pick. Good afternoon, Jermaine. Hope you're doing well. But Arizona's, yeah. I mean, if they take Marvin Harrison, not to belabor the point, I get it. But you have to look at teams' MOs. And Arizona has been notorious for making these moves in recent history of bringing in these guys that you're like, wow, you got Kyler Murray, who's talented, and you got DeAndre. This is, who's going to stop him? You bring in Hollywood, who's going to stop him? Hollywood leaves Lamar for Kyler Murray. This is fantastic. And those didn't work out. If I'm Marvin, I would rather go to the Chargers. But we'll see what happens. I don't see it happening in Arizona, but we'll see. I don't see it happening. I think there's a better chance Arizona trades out of the pick. Let's go to the Rams. The Rams got Matty Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo. Who the frick thought that was going to happen? And they have one of my favorite names in the NFL as a backup quarterback, Dresser Wynn. When that T-shirt falls behind and you can sneak your arm in there and grab it and pull it through so that the drawer closes, that's a Dresser Wynn. So, just so you know. Kyron Williams, he stepped it up last year coming out of Notre Dame. They have Ronnie Rivers, not Ron Rivera. Don't twitch, Isaac. It's going to be okay. I think they could bring in another running back with the Rams. And if we look at where the Rams are going to be picking here, the Los Angeles Rams' first pick comes 19. So I don't think they're going to take a quarterback or a running back that early, but we'll see. But they need a running back. They need another wide receiver, but they can wait on it because they got Puka and Cooper. They need a tight end. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to be there at 19, but if he is, that's a no-brainer. And They're going to need some help on their offensive line, some depth. They definitely need defensive line. They could, maybe if some reason Dallas Turner falls, maybe they go there. But I think maybe DB, definitely defensive line, maybe some offensive line, another receiver, another running back, and a tight end at some point is what I would see for the Rams at number 19. And quarterback, I think at number 19, that would be kind of a wasted pick, in my opinion. So the next one we have up here coming out of the Rams, with 2 teams left to go in our 32-team draft assessment here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, is San Francisco, the Niners. They got Brock Purdy. They brought in Josh Dobbs. They have Brandon Allen, who was a good backup in Jacksonville. And they let him go instead of putting him on the practice squad, which didn't make any sense to me, but it happened. You have CMC, Christian McCaffrey, man's a phenom. Could have won multiple awards this past year. And Elijah Mitchell, Patrick Taylor, who I covered in college at Memphis. You can go another running back, but not early if you're San Francisco. If you're San Francisco, you can get another wide receiver in the draft, and I suggest they do. They could trade bait one of their guys. Tight end, they could look at tight end. I mean, Kittle's there, but Kittle's got to stay healthy, man. San Fran picks 31. Because they were the runner-up in the Super Bowl. So you're looking at best available at that point. But, I mean, I look at this and I say, running back, not in the first. It also depends if a running back is taken, but you have CMC. I don't think they take a running back in the first round. That's later in the draft. They could take a wide receiver at 31. They could take a tight end. I don't think they're going to take a tight end in the first round, though. And then defensively, I mean, they had the number 1 defense arguably in the country last year, but I think defensive back, they could look at corner or safety, in my opinion, for San Fran. And shout out to Phil Carpenter, my big San Fran fan. Much love. So, yeah, I mean, DB, wide receiver at some point, maybe offensive line, another running back, but don't do the running back thing until day 3 if you're San Francisco. In my Seattle Seahawks. And this is an interesting one because for the first time in over a decade, Pete Carroll's not their head coach. Geno Smith is there. Sam Howell was brought in from Washington. By the way, shout out my man Isaac Elford, who's a big Washington Commanders fan. Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. Past the Charbonnet. I just feel like he's missing the boat here. Like, if he doesn't have his own wine called the Chardonnay, I mean, to me, that's easy money. That's easy drop in the bucket there. Many drops in the bucket. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, they don't need a running back. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, who they just got recently, they don't need a wide receiver. They could look at tight end. Now, Seattle, in the first round, Seattle has... pardon me, the Jets have the 10th overall pick. I said the Jets were out of it because the Jets the Jets changed their logo, and on my board, the logo is tiny. They went back to the old logo, like way back, like Boomer Esiason feel. And so they have the 10th. I'm sitting here going like, I'm crazy. Did they trade out of the first round? They have the 10th overall pick. So my apologies going all the way back to the Jets and the AFC. They have the 10th overall pick. Brock Bowers is a definite possibility. My mistake. My apologies. I'm looking at logos. It looks like Seattle because it's like this thin, tiny line on my screen right now. I apologize on that. They do have the 10th because I'm looking at this thing going, I know they have a pick in the first round. So my apologies on that. Seattle has the 16th pick. And Seattle's needs, tight end, quarterback. I think they could take a quarterback at 16. Maybe they take Penix. offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, those are all needs. By the way, Rayshon Jenkins, who Jacksonville let go, he got waived. He's on Seattle now, and I'm going to be cheering for him because I just love talking to him. I had a lot of fun with him. So, yeah, I mean, Seattle to me, offensive and defensive line, quarterback. I mean, they've waited a bunch of years, and they haven't taken a quarterback, and linebacker. So maybe they're a Penix or a Bo Nix. Maybe that's where they go. So I want to shout out now before we finish everything up here. The Buffalo Bills fans, I shouted out a bunch of you. Josh Gideon, Mark Walczyk, John Ball, Catherine, and so on and so forth. Shane. Miami, my guy Jason Lucas, who's been on the show a bunch. My guy Rick Etienne as well. New England Patriots, shout out to Nicholas Cicero. And my baby Donna, and my little brothers Nico and Miguel. New York Jets, Brendan Murphy. As well as Joe Russell. Some Jets fans out there. Baltimore Ravens, I think, still my old roommate from college. So shout out to that. Maybe Chris Heidel. Cincinnati Bengals, Johnny Fordyce. Cleveland Browns, Enrico Mastriani. Pittsburgh Steelers, the Fitzgibbon family. Love y'all. Houston. Do I have any people that I can shout out from Houston? I don't think so. Colts, no. Jaguars, me. Tennessee Titans. I know there's one person in Syracuse that had a flag in Syracuse. I drove by it all the time, and I made a very angry face. Denver Broncos, Floyd Little up in heaven. God bless you. God bless always. Kansas City Chiefs, Brandon Smith. The Raiders. My buddy's wife. Shout them out. Chargers, I don't think I have anybody to shout out for the Chargers. Dallas Cowboys, James, also my second favorite team. There's a ton of Cowboy fans out there. Much love to dem boys. I know Rob appreciates that. I know a bunch of Giants fans. Met one last night. And a big Saquon fan. Philly, Rob Drummond. Also, Jimmer Sikowski of the Buffalo Bills. My apologies. Washington, Curtis Tillman III, Isaac Elford. Chi-Town, Chicago. Do I have a resident Chicago person? I don't think I have a resident Chicago person. Detroit, Johnny Roberts. You already know. Green Bay, Aaron Roberts. Makes for a fun household. Minnesota, I don't think I have anybody to shout out here. Atlanta, my man Joe Forgione. The Carolina Panthers, I don't think I have anybody here. New Orleans, I don't think I do. Tampa, Sean Tucker fans, I guess I would say. Arizona, I don't think I have anybody here. I know there's somebody with the Rams, so shout out to them. I can't, it's not hitting me right now. Philadelphia, Phil Carpenter. Seattle, I don't think we have a resident one yet. So if I named a team and I don't have a resident fan of it and you're a fan of it, then send that over to me. There is a Rams fan. I talked to somebody yesterday who's a Ram at the Wildcat. So shout out to you. Oh, I think it was John. I think John told me he's a Ram. So shout out to John. Shout out to my guy John. Absolutely. Sturgis. Believe he's a Rams fan. So shout out to you, man. God bless. So wanted to try and shout out somebody from every team, but those are my team needs. All 32 NFL franchises here for you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And we have stayed well past our broadcasting time of 11 as we're here at 12:30. So make sure you're with us on Wake Up Call Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time and longer on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Once the show goes live and hops into the archives, the breakdown of the NFL is going to be here for you. All 32 teams in one broadcast going into the draft. North, South, East, and West, starting in the AFC and then to the NFC. So we do AFC North, South, East, West, NFC North, South, East, West, all 32 teams analysis going into the 2024 NFL Draft on what I think each of them needs as they step forward. You can find this on Amazon Music and much more on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Big time thanks to our incredible partners who you should go visit in Central and Upstate New York. They are Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, as well as Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, GG Cards and Breaks, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Canine Kampground Dog Boarding, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Pizza Man, Great Lakes Honda City, Mother's Cupboard, and of course, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins during Dolphin Time Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You will find the Dolphins first and third Wednesday of each month with AD and DT featuring Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, with exclusive news throughout the year, behind-the-scenes look at the Dolphins and Lemoyne College in general, including being the exclusive home that brought you the entire timeline of the beginning all the way through to the actual move to Division I. And, of course, our Dolphin Dive, second and fourth Wednesday of each month, diving into stories of student-athletes, coaches, future Dolphins, and alumni, as well as administration, including President Dr. Linda Lemura and board members at Lemoyne College. So make sure you check out all this by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll find the Lemoyne playlist. You'll also find the Dolphins on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to lemoynedolphins.com. Fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You will find the Bobcats every single month where sports meets life right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with student athletes, coaches, and administration. We just had a Bobcat takeover recently here, and you can go back and watch that with the baseball team with DJ Hill and Dylan Hodgman, as well as head coach Sean Peak, and of course the director for both of the Syracuse campuses on James Street in Syracuse and on Route 57 in Liverpool, that being Mary Hawkins. You could check out all of those, including every episode of the Bobcat Buzz, on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell. You can find the BSC Syracuse playlist on our YouTube channel. You can also find the Bobcats on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, as well as on the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You'll find the Bearcats every single month and weekly during Bearcat time on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Moments with Marshall, which includes our conversations behind the scenes with information that is awesome and truly special to get from Binghamton University Athletics Director Gene Marshall. Behind the scenes look, maybe some exclusive information, and just a background of Binghamton University and the athletic department that you won't find anywhere else quite like this. Gene Marshall joining me every month with Moments with Marshall, and also Tuesdays at 10 a.m. You'll find throughout the month Bearcat Break Room with stories from student athletes, coaches, and administration connected with the Binghamton University Bearcats athletic programs. You can find it all by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and of course you can also find the Binghamton University playlist on our YouTube channel, and you can find Binghamton on our website, wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, as well as underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to bubearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, thank you to Carvel DeWitt for bringing you the DT Dolphin. Go and try my Sunday on 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. Thanks for the annoying moment of the week. We had 4 scoops of it this week. Lead, learn, evolve, ad-lib, and deliver. All about this week's topic of navigating your mind and making sure you don't let people rent out loft apartments in your mind, and that you don't put minds in your mind so you don't have a minefield inside of your mind. Brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. Big shout out to Jimmer Sikowski, Betty, Hunter, as well as Sam, Jack, and the entire family. Andy, God bless y'all, and God bless the Sikowskis, and God bless Jimmer in his fight to heal completely and for good, and no matter what, to heal through God and handle well whatever comes his way, and the same for the family. And God bless the team at Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. The top dog of the week, proudly presented by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Kampground Dog Boarding, the only place I trust to tell you to bring your dog for short and long-term care, right off of Bridge Street in East Syracuse, 228 Old Bridge Street for the daycare, and 242 Johnson Street for the dog boarding Canine Kampground. You can call the daycare at 315-437-7110, and you can call the Kampground dog boarding at 315-299-4013. For more information, go to k-9kamp.com and k-9kampground.com as well. Our top dogs of the week, of course, Syracuse Police Officer Michael Jensen and Onondaga County Sheriff's Deputy Lieutenant Michael Husak, and of course, everyone in law enforcement, all of our first responders, those that have given their lives in the line of duty, and those that continue to serve us and will make the decision to serve everyone, including many strangers that they don't know. Thank you for making sure we get home safe. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for taking care of us. And thank you for being there for us in such a very special way. You are angels on earth, and please not understand the importance to protect and serve, importance of treating everybody equally, and the importance of your job. Thank you. God bless you. We see you. We hear you. We know you. We love you. Thanks for being our top dogs of the week. Proudly presented by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Kampground Dog Boarding. And of course, the NFL draft coverage, bringing you into the NFL draft with what I think all 32 teams need, going team by team, division by division, north, south, east, and west, AFC to the NFC. You now have a full scope of the NFL from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora through my eyes and my research. And of course, we'll be bringing you into the NFL draft. And once again, want to make a note of this. We'll see you out at Pizza Man this Thursday, April 25th. The draft starts at 8 p.m. Our live mock draft starts at 6 p.m. Can't wait to see you there. First round of the mock draft. We will be going through it. Al Romano and myself, Dan Tortora, giving our picks 1 through 32 in our mock draft on draft night, Thursday, April 25th, 6 o'clock on the Pizza Man stage on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. And then the draft will follow at 8 p.m. Thursday, April 25th. We'll see you for a night at Pizza Man for awesome food and drinks. Drink responsibly and only drink if you are of age. We can't wait to see you out there. And you can watch worldwide on all of our channels, the same as the ones that you watch in the morning for Wake Up Call, youtube.com and facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. And on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com, you'll be able to find our NFL draft coverage of our mock draft. So, have a great day. Stay safe. I'll see you all at the spring game. I hope you pack the dome and help us make history tomorrow night. Saturday at 7 o'clock, Saturday, April 20th for the spring game in a new era of Syracuse football, and Fran Brown going out for his first spring game, and of course having some awesome coaches and people returning and getting to see players that you haven't seen before. So very much excited for it. Can't wait for it. Bring the family out. God bless. No stress. Do your best. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, all of our channels. And, of course, you can find us on youtube.com /WakeUpCallDT. The votes continue to come in. You can continue to vote for the next few days. If you are the Washington Commanders, which quarterback do you take? Jaden Daniels or Drake May? Right now, 37.5% say Jaden Daniels and 62.5% have chosen Drake May. You have flipped it from how it started. You can continue to vote by following us on X at CallDT, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Have a beautiful day. God bless you all. Stay safe. And to everybody that protects our lives, that protects total strangers, I thank you, and may God be with you, and may you be protected by God and his love, and may those that have gone up to heaven be taken on angels' wings and always be with us through God, because dying, Jesus destroyed our death, and rising, he restored our life. Thank you, Michael Jensen. Thank you, Lieutenant Michael Husak. Thank you to everyone that's given their lives in the line of duty, and thank you for everyone who has served, will serve, or is serving now. God bless. No stress. Do your best.